welcome to the 427th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. Happy Halloween last weekend. This is a podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out to Andrew Loken. He is a big, awesome supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the Secret Podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I just recently did a bunch of Off My Mind episodes about different topics, multiverse stuff. I can't, don't even ask me now, I can't even think. Comic books, lots of Hobgoblin stuff, and we're looking at sticking with the multi-dimensional stuff, more what-if stuff and everything. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or two. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. So what is going to be this week? Slight minor change of plans. Not really major plans. I think I pretty much knew. The movie feature, the main movie feature, the only movie feature is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. So it's been in theaters a couple weeks. I think it's still in theaters this week, depending on your location on availability. It will be appearing on Netflix, I believe, November 7th. So you'll be able to watch that. But every once in a while, they release these movies on a big screen to make them a contender for Oscars and movie awards and stuff like that. I think it's cool when they do that if it's something that I'm interested in, because I think I saw that Red Notice, the Ryan Reynolds, Dwayne Johnson, Gal Gadot movie. It's cool to see him on a big screen, and as much as I love home streaming stuff, but you have that. So the reason the change of plans is I'm so confused because Back to the Future was supposed to be released on Halloween Day, on Friday, October 31st, for the 40th anniversary, even though the 40th anniversary, I think it was like July 31st, July something, I don't know. And my theater was supposed to have it, and I kept checking, online ticket sales. Online, it's like it's not up yet, not up. Because sometimes they'll have, like I purchased tickets for the next Wicked movie already, and sometimes they have a month. Sometimes it's like it'll be a couple days, and then like, oh, there they are. And I think it could be a matter of availability. Like, are they actually getting a copy of the movie, the code, the key, or however the movies work these days, because they're not filmed. And I was like waiting, and I was like, well, maybe they're not going to show. But when I saw Shelby Oaks, I was going to ask them, and I totally forgot. But then I saw, like, in this one hallway at a theater, because there's multiple screens in it, they had a poster for coming soon, Back to the Future. I was like, oh, maybe they are getting it. Kept checking, no. And it's like, well, okay, so I saw Frankenstein Thursday, and I was like, well, maybe I can see Back to the Future Friday afternoon or Saturday or something. But yeah, they never got it. And I checked like the other theater, local theater, and they didn't have it either. And I don't know what's going on. I've seen it recently, like in the last few years. I've seen it, because theaters sometimes do like flashback cinema. But yeah, so no Back to the Future. I should just watch it at home. Maybe tonight, maybe not. We'll see. Speaking of Halloween, I did dress up as Marty McFly again. I dressed up as Marty McFly, I think it was not last year, so 3 years ago, I think it was. Time flies. I just did like regular Marty, jean jacket, orange vest, and that Casio digital watch. This year, I did Back to the Future 2, and the little slight pause there was I dressed up as it's debatable whether I dressed up as Marty McFly in Back to the Future 2, or did I dress up as Marty McFly Jr., because the jacket that I got, the sleeves are all like wonky, like Marty McFly Jr.'s jacket was, but I went with like a red shirt, and Marty McFly Jr. had a white shirt, and his hair was all sweaty, and my hair wasn't sweaty. So hopefully you had a good Halloween, if you celebrate that, depending on where you're at. I just want to give a shout out to people around the world. Because being a math major, being a math teacher, I love looking at the data of the show, and it's so weird that the numbers aren't always consistent I mean, that's not really a good thing for me, because I would say, like, if you're listening to a show, you're going to consistently listen to it. But I get maybe sometimes you can't. You didn't get a chance to listen to it or download it or whatever. Maybe you will in a couple weeks, or maybe you'll catch up or whatever. And I'm assuming maybe this is my concern is, like, do people, they're like, oh, I'm not interested in that movie. I'm not going to listen to the podcast because I'm busy and everything. Oh, next week's, oh yeah, I do want to hear about that. I'm going to listen to that episode. Because then that makes me wonder that the problem is if I'm talking about, like, Fionna and Cake, or whatever show I'm talking about, do people, you're missing out if I don't know. But the interesting thing is, so when I look at my data, I'm able to see what countries people are listening from, like where they're coming from, and it just blows me away. I'm so ecstatic that I'm just so thrilled that you're listening, and it means a lot to me. Listeners from Brazil. There's like a bunch of Brazilian listeners recently. So I don't know how to say, even though I have family in Brazil, I don't know how to say hello in Portuguese, which is probably the most basic thing. But yeah, people are, like, all over. So I think that's just, it's really cool. It's very humbling, and I appreciate every single one of you listening. It's just, I guess I don't really think about it, because as I'm sitting here now that I'm recording on my own, because in the Comic Vine days, I was always recording with someone else, with Matt or Corey or whatever, and I knew that we had lots of listeners all over. Although with that, I never really had access to, like, worldwide data. I never really saw that, because I don't even know what the metrics were. Yeah, it was just a different thing. But now that I'm mainly recording on my own, and it's really because of, I don't want to say technology, but like the hardware, and then it's just time, because I've mentioned, spoiler, I may not necessarily record 3 hours straight in a row. I might record this portion early. I mean, if you're paying close attention, and I don't want to give it away, but you might notice sometimes, like, oh, you're talking about this, and then wait, why do you sound a little different here? Or why is the background sound a little different? Because there might be, like, I'm recording in my classroom, I'm recording at home. I record sometimes if I'm able to. It doesn't always work, and I'm just wasting time. No, I understand that, but hopefully this is interesting. Sometimes I might record something a little early. It's like, oh, I was able to watch this show because I'm a week behind or something like that, so I can record this, now, and in that way, when I record the rest, I don't have to do that part. It gives me a little bit of a break, especially after teaching all week. It's hard to try to get it all in the weekend and then edit and post and everything. So when I'm recording, because I'm recording by myself, I sometimes feel isolated. I know I'm speaking to you, especially, yes, you, I'm talking about you. So I know you're listening, but I guess I never really think about where you're listening at, and where, so I think that's just really cool. Okay, what do we have? So we have Frankenstein. I mentioned Fionna Cake, Adventure Time Fionna Cake, Season 2, Episode 2, got that. Welcome to Derry has started up. I'm only going to talk about the first episode. The second episode dropped early on Halloween, but I have, as I record this, I haven't watched it yet, so I haven't had a chance. So that gives me that little bit of buffer, so maybe I can record it on Tuesday or Wednesday, at some point, if I get a chance to watch early before I record the rest of the podcast. It gives you a chance to watch early too, because the shows normally drop on Sundays, and I post this podcast Sunday afternoon, so I wouldn't be able to get it, watch it, record it in time. So we got Frankenstein, Fionna Cake, and Welcome to Derry, and that's it. And we got comics and news. So streamlining things a little bit, which is, I hate to say it, but it's good for me, because the show, the last few weeks, there's like so much stuff to talk about, and I don't want to skip. I still feel bad that I dropped Wednesday, the second part of season 2. I still haven't watched it because I just don't have the time. So there's just so much to watch. But let's talk about the news. There's a bit of news. We had a couple trailers. We had a new Scream trailer. It looks good. We got Sydney back, Neve Campbell. There's some other people, and obviously, as good as it looks and everything, part of me is like, this is what the 7th movie, right? It's like, here we go again. I guess part of the things, and I apologize if I just sound so skeptical or so bitter, not bitter, but just so, old man, get off my lawn type of thing. But as I look at this, while I'm looking forward to seeing this again, I've enjoyed the franchise, but it's just like, all right, we're doing this again because it's almost like every single time the killer gets killed or revealed or goes to jail or something happens, and then it's like someone else doing this again, and there's always like some sort of connection, but it's like after all this time, because the person that is apparently hassling going after Sydney, it's like keeps making it sound like there is some deep connection, but it's like, how can there be a connection when like everyone after all these movies, like every possible person with even the slightest motive, they've been dealt with or killed or something, but then here's someone else and here's someone else. So it just feels like it's the same thing, and I guess you can say the same thing with all the other movies, but when you're doing like Freddy, Freddy, that doesn't matter. You could just, he's going after, here's more kids, I'm going to target them. So there's no like long lasting connection, and yeah, you had Heather Langenkamp, kept coming back, or for the different movies, or you look at Michael Myers, but they wiped out all the sequels, because he's going after Laurie. So I don't know what the answer, because I don't necessarily want them to like reboot and start over, because 5 was almost a reboot. We have other characters, but then they also had the original. 5 almost felt like Force Awakenings, where it's like, oh, here's Rey and Finn and Poe, but we still have the originals, and it felt like they're trying to introduce like the next generation so we can take off from there. Didn't quite happen in Star Wars, and with Scream, it doesn't quite happen either because of the actors and stuff happening. So I don't know because I don't want them to just start over and do that. But you look at like I Know What You Did Last Summer. We had 2 movies, only 2. There was never a third I Know What You Did Last Summer movie. No, wasn't a straight to video. There's no straight to video movie taking place in like Arizona or something, some other place. They bring the movie back after all these years. You got all these young kids, but you still had the connection. You still had Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. that were kind of tying it together. Having on whether they're on the outskirts, not necessarily directly in the midst of all this, but you still had it. So it was kind of like a reboot with new characters, but you also had the original. And yeah, so there's a new Scream trailer. It looks good, but I'm just like, all right, I'm doing this again. I don't know how much longer, how many times you can do this, but we'll see. Stranger Things. I don't know how many more times you can do this. One more time, this is it. I'm gonna watch it. The part of the problem with Stranger Things, I think, is I was never like a huge Stranger Things fans. I always kind of appreciate what they did. And part of me, like, if I had the time, I would go back and like rewatch the scenes, because it's like I barely remember like second or third season, like what happened and everything. My other problem is 11, or the character just kind of gets on my nerves, just screaming, little trickle of blood in the nose, and it's just like, and it's just getting more and more and more and more powerful each time. It's like now she's like flying like 20 feet high over fences, and I keep seeing like I saw another article. It's like when the teaser trailer first came out, I saw people were talking like she's got superpowers. She's like a Marvel character, and I saw someone posted that again recently. It's like, no, she's not a Marvel character. She can teleport. She's got her abilities. And the other thing is, like, are they still in high school? It's like, seriously, they look like they're in mid 20s or 30s, not 30s, barely mid 20s, but it's because it's like how much time is supposedly passed. This is a problem when you're having a show with kids and it takes so long in between seasons. The production, there's various reasons, writing it and then filming it, and then actors wanting to do other projects as well. You can't have all these movies take place within a couple years, whatever, because the kids are going to age, and they don't look like kids. and they're still riding their bicycles. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know what to expect, but we'll see what's going to happen. Avengers Doomsday. Famke Janssen has confirmed that nope, she's not going to be in it because apparently every time this drives me nuts. But anyways, every time I guess she does an interview, she's doing something, and they're asking her like, "Oh, are you going to be in MCU or whatever like that?" And she's like, "I keep getting asked this and whatever." And so she basically says, and this was with Entertainment Weekly, she says that that she was never asked to join the MCU. She's like, never, never, ever. So no, she's not doing it because they never asked her. When I thought about like this quote, because I didn't see like an actual interview, it almost seems like, okay, is there a little bit of bitterness there? And she should be, because she says she's happy that people keep asking, that the character is like resonated with so much that her performance, her contribution to it, a lot of people care. I don't think it's necessarily just her performance. Jean Grey is an important character, and it's hard to think of the X-Men without Jean Grey or Phoenix. But she obviously played a big part of that as well, opening up to a wider audience. But she says that they haven't asked her, and because the way I look at it, and I mean, I know nothing about Avengers Doomsday, but yes, they're calling in like several people. You can't bring everyone back, and if you're going to bring everyone back, maybe they're looking at it as, well, we don't have an unlimited budget. And trying to bring some of these people back, they may not want to do it, or they may play hardball and say, yeah, I want like $5 million to do, 2-day shoot or whatever, however long it would take. So they may kind of have to pick and choose, like, okay, we can't bring every single X-Men character, every single, Daredevil or Punisher or whatever. You can't have everyone back because it's going to be expensive, and it would just be unfortunate. I mean, actors should get paid what they're due, but at the same time, some people are like, oh, the fans really want this, so that means you need to pay me more money, and that's where it gets. I get it. I understand, but yeah. So I don't know why. Maybe there's just no room in the script for having Phoenix, the Phoenix power, and it just wouldn't make sense. It would give them too much of an advantage. I really don't know. So she says she's not going to be in it. So this is what annoys me. So Tremel Tillman, who I love in Severance, there was this Variety thing, I think it was Variety, and they asked him, I did see this video, where the person interviewing asked, it's like, oh, okay, can you tease the villain role you're playing in Spider-Man, Brand New Day? So you cannot. It's so incredibly annoying. And it could be like their boss, like, hey, you're going to be out there, you're going to be talking to these characters, you need to try to get any soundbite or tidbit about a Marvel news, because that's what all the geek sites and news people and streaming or Twitters and Instagram, that's what they want to hear about. So if we can get this soundbite, it will maybe go viral. Is that I don't know if that's the right phrase I should use. But the thing is, they cannot answer anything. And if you catch someone off guard and get them to slip something, you would be an incredible douche. Yes, I'm going to call him a douche, by running with that, because then that person is going to get in trouble. They're going to get reprimanded, and because they signed NDAs. They are basically, you're trying to get them to breach their contract. They probably signed something, yes, I will do this role, I will take your money, and I will not talk about this. And in some cases, I will lie if anyone asks me. That's what the legal stuff is probably saying. I don't know if they're telling them to lie, probably, maybe. But when they keep asking, it's like they cannot answer anything. There's no official, statement that's been released. You are trying to get them to say something with the possibility of them getting in major trouble. And then maybe it's like, okay, we're not going to ask you we're not going to make another role for you because you're ruining this. So what he said when he was asked, they're like, can you tease the villain you're playing? And he's like, who says I'm playing the villain? And he's like, where are you getting your info from? And he just says that he's playing a complex character. It doesn't mean he's a villain. And yeah, you can assume that, but why assuming he's playing a villain? I just. But maybe that's what you have to do. I don't know. I'm glad. Part of me is I'm glad that I'm not doing interviews anymore, because it's just, I get that, yes, it's cutthroat or whatever, but maybe I'm just not cut out for it. I'm not cutthroat, and I don't want to try to get people like, I gotcha. No, you said it. It's too bad. It's on the record. The camera's rolling. You know that. That's just bad. A campaign has started to find where's Ben Solo. Apparently, sometime back, Adam Driver and Steven Soderbergh developed like a pitch, a movie idea for the hunt for Ben Solo. And it was a little confusing because I'm trying to remember what happened after Rise of Skywalker. Did Ben, spoiler, because I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, did he die at the end or did he live? I don't even remember. I feel like he died, but I don't know. But there is thinking about doing some movie with him, which would be like, how could you do another movie if he's dead? But maybe he's not, or maybe it takes place in another point. I thought I read like last week or something like that. I don't think I talked about this last week, but I think that they got fairly far with it, but then it was kind of like, it just doesn't really fit, doesn't really make sense or whatever. So they didn't end up not doing it. But then once people heard about this, so now there's this campaign to try to get Disney to do this. And, bless you for whatever. It's maybe not necessarily gonna go anywhere. They're putting up like missing signs, around. I don't know if it was like New York. They're having meetups and doing stuff to like, have you seen this man? And there's Adam Driver, and so it's not that easy. And yeah, maybe if you can show there's enough interest, and the studios might be like, they're interested in that. Maybe we should do that. We'll make some money. But it's not that easy. I mean, there's so many other things going on. And, with the whole Star Wars front, they're busy, and you would think, I don't know, to me it feels like the same thing with like let's say there's a hot new Marvel character that pops up in a comic, then they might be like, oh, people might want to see a movie, might want to see this character, but they're tied. They have this movie coming out, and that's it. I feel like with Marvel and with Star Wars, they're just like so limited as to how many they can do. Like they've limited themselves versus before. So like, okay, you're going to use this, and maybe it's a matter. It's like, oh, we only have 3 lots that we can use, or whatever, warehouses, and I don't know. But we'll have to see if anything happens with that. This is another next thing. Alexandra Daddario, she was interviewing for something, and people were like, what do you think about all the fan speculation of you playing Wonder Woman in a James Gunn movie? And one, I haven't seen any of that, but I'm not like scouring the internet. I'm not on there all the time like I used to be. Not that I was all the time. And she's like, oh, I hadn't seen that. Like she hadn't seen any of the speculation or photoshopped images or anything like that. But apparently some people are like, she should play Wonder Woman. And it's like, why? It's like, oh, you got dark hair and you got boobs, you should be Wonder Woman. It's like, it doesn't always work that way. Because the other thing, I'm trying to think, I don't know how old she is, but if we're doing a 10-year plan, is she wanting to commit to a 10-year plan? Or whatever it is. Who knows if there's going to be a 10-year plan if Warner Brothers gets sold or acquired or whatever. But it's just this fan casting, and then people are like, oh yeah, we should do this. But it's like, it's never even been considered. And it kind of seems like James Gunn, I feel like what he said is like they have to be like a certain height or certain, and have the ability to act, and what there are certain things. You can't just say, whoever, yeah. So she's like, yeah, I don't know anything about that. And you're asking dumb questions that have no answer because there is no answer. What about House of the Dragon? I didn't realize there's a season 3 coming out. And this is another show I dropped. I watched the first season, and I enjoyed it for the most part. It was fine. Season 2, when it came out, I was watching too many other things, so I didn't watch it. And then, so I missed out on that. Now season 3 is coming out. It's like I was like, okay, I wasn't aware of that. Cool. So some images were released. I didn't look at them because I don't know what's going on. But if you are into that, you have that to look forward to. Oh, and I think I saw a trailer for some other. I don't know if it was last week or not, but there's this other Game of Thrones show, something coming out, and I watched a trailer and I'm like, I have no idea what this is about. Dragons and swords. I think I'll pass on it. and again, nothing against the diehard fans. Bless you. I'm happy for you that you have this stuff, and hopefully it is good stuff coming out. I struggle with the old timey stuff. I don't know what it is about it. So I think there's another Game of Thrones stuff, something coming out. What about Doctor Who? So there's that Doctor Who spinoff that was mentioned a while ago. It's called was the War Between Land and Sea. I think it's supposed to be focusing and dealing with this war because the Doctor's not around. So it's, I guess, playing in the UK on BBC in December 2025, and then it'll be on Disney Plus, which I'm surprised. I'm glad. Sometime in 2026. We just don't know. There's no date for that. I think there was a bit of news that came out last week that they're like, yeah, Doctor Who's done on Disney Plus. They're not doing another season for that. I don't know what the reason is necessarily. The last season didn't do so well, and I feel like a lot of people, I don't know if the ratings were low. Maybe it just wasn't the audience, or it could be people are racist. A lot of people seem to have issues that, the Doctor Who's crying. He actually has emotions, and all the woke this and woke that. So people didn't like that. But I think for Disney, they want to own something. They don't, by having Doctor Who, they don't have ownership over it. And I don't know what percent they're getting, but because at the same thing, they're doing Percy Jackson. Did they buy? How much do they own of Percy Jackson compared to Doctor? Because I think it's just a whole different thing. Maybe they have a bigger piece of Percy Jackson because they're buying the rights to it, versus Doctor Who. They're not buying the rights for it. They're co-funding it, and I don't even know if they're how that works, because it's not playing in Disney Plus in England. I think it's still on BBC, but they're working with the BBC. I don't know. So I feel like that's a big problem that with that, why they're not going to continue. It's maybe it's just it wasn't lucrative enough for them. I don't know. So we have that. The Conjuring. So Conjuring is over, right? Nope. So good news if you're into The Conjuring. I'm into this. They're apparently going to do a prequel, and I'm not really clear if they're going to do it'll probably be a movie. I mean, don't do a prequel series. You could do a prequel series, but you got to be careful with that, because it could get redundant and you could run out of ideas right away. But they're going to do at least a prequel movie, and it sounds like James Wan's going to help produce it, just to maybe keep the vibe or whatever. So that's good. That's fine. I mean, I like that because I enjoyed those movies, and I know some people didn't like the last one, but I thought it was fine. All the movies haven't been great, but there's something about them that I've enjoyed. Who remembers Buck Rogers? Buck Rogers from the end of the 25th century. I'm assuming that's the Buck Rogers we're talking about. So Buck Rogers, Gil Gerard. Yeah, that I enjoyed that show. I think I've watched all the episodes. I don't know if I have the complete series on DVD. I should have watched. I was going to watch them. Obviously, never got around to doing all that because I don't have time for anything. But it sounds like they're going to do a movie, and someone's hired Zeb Wells to write the movie. Oh, Legendary did. That's who it was. Yeah. So we're going to get a Buck Rogers movie. I think that's cool. No other information has been out. I think it's going to be tricky because you have to do it. Buck Rogers, I don't think, even though, like I remember Buck Rogers, I don't know if there's necessarily like a big longing for, oh, we need more Buck Rogers content and stuff like that. So making a Buck Rogers movie, it's not like people are going to be like, oh man, let's line up at the theater because I can't wait for this. So it may just appear, to the average person who doesn't know anything about it, they might think like, oh, here's a new sci-fi movie. Okay, cool, whatever. I think, unfortunately, I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to try to get some hot, and by hot, like in demand actor, someone who can carry that and bring people, to the theaters and all that. So we'll have to see how that goes. So, and I'm more curious, is it going to be 25th century? Are they going to push it back since we're now in the 21st century? So I don't know. And the last bit of news, this is ridiculous. I think I saw this last week. Maybe I just chose to ignore it, but I saw more people talking about it. And so with all this Warner Brothers stuff, like potentially, I still don't understand why people are bidding on it. And I get because it's Warner Brothers Discovery and maybe Discovery separated. I don't even understand why can't Warner Brothers, don't they have enough money to fund themselves because they own so much IP, so much stuff. But everyone's like, because Paramount put a bid and they're like, nope, yeah, not interested or whatever. And then there's the big thing, what I'm talking about now is like Netflix. And people are saying, well, if Netflix buys Warner Brothers, then that means we can get the Snyderverse back, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous that I'm even bringing this up. We're going to bring it up because it does. I mean, people were saying this before, like they're like, oh, they should just let Netflix do it, but it doesn't work that way. Before Warner Brothers wouldn't, like, they're not going to say, yeah, you can do that. I mean, I guess they could license it out because then they'll still make money off of it, but they're not going to do that. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And now, even if Netflix were to acquire Warner Brothers, it doesn't automatically mean the Snyderverse is back because, one, I don't think Netflix really cares about things. They're about making money, and doing Snyderverse stuff is going to be expensive because with all the actors involved, one, do they even want to do this? Has any of them be like, yeah, I wish we could do that. I'm ready. I don't even know if they'd want to. And then this could be a matter of like, what I was saying before with like X-Men or Doomsday stuff, whatever. The pressures would be there. It's like, okay, we need to reunite all these actors. But some of them, if someone's like holding out, it could get to the point like, okay, yeah, Aquaman, he's on the other side of the world, dealing with some other stuff, so he's not going to be in this. There could be some ways to not include everyone, but if they're going to do it, you think they would want to, especially with how like the weird future apocalypse stuff was teased. I don't even know. I don't think they're interested in doing it. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe they'll be like, yeah, let's do this, or maybe it's just a matter of they give enough money. But it's like that's going to be a lot of money. And I just don't think, I don't know if they want to do it. And some people are like, well, that's why Zack Snyder's been posting all these, black and white photos, And I think he's just doing it to stir, things up, get attention, maybe get attention to himself. I don't know. Maybe it's for his ego. No idea. But yeah, so I don't think we are going to get any more Snyderverse. What I do know is we're going to get more podcasts, but that is it for the news this week. With comic books, there wasn't a whole lot. I think this is like a fifth week, maybe. I haven't looked at the calendar. I don't know. At Dynamite, I believe there was a Supernatural comic that came out. I did not read it, but there's supposed to be a Supernatural comic written by Greg Pak. And I think, so looking at this, looks like Eater Messias. I'm kind of curious with that. I started watching Supernatural. I might only be on season one. Maybe I don't know if I made it to season two. It could be interesting, but Greg Pak, I would have faith in he's going to do some good stuff. So yeah, I haven't seen that. Maybe I'll try to check that out. I did finally read Blue Falcon and Blue Falcon and Dynamut issues 1 and 2. So those are written by Jimmy Palmiotti. I ordered like all the covers from not all the covers, but I got a set for issue 1. I was like, yeah, I love Blue Falcon and Dynamite. I had a lunchbox. I know in second grade I had a Blue Falcon lunchbox, and I still have the thermos. My brother found it and sent it to me. The lunchbox, the handle broke, probably ended up got thrown away, unfortunately. So I just thought they were so cool. And, it's Hanna-Barbera and, it's kind of Scooby-Doo, but superhero stuff. So, I mean, it's like, yes, please, more. And so now we got this comic, which is awesome. And, I love Jimmy Palmiotti. He's always been, so, cool and nice. I ordered the set, and the first issue was supposed to go out in September. I'm not going to mention who I ordered from, but it's the same company that I got all the Chris Giarrusso variant covers for the Marvel Universe thing, and they gave a good discount. And with the Blue Falcon comic, that's the reason why I went with them. With the Chris Giarrusso ones, there's like no customer service, and it's like, okay, I'm emailing, it's like, any update? When is this going to ship? And then they just like ship it out. So it's like, if I didn't email asking, would you not have shipped it? Like, I got them, and they're great condition, packaged well, and all that. And then with Blue Falcon, it's like, okay, it's supposed to come out in September. Issue 2 is out. I haven't read issue 1 because I was waiting for the physical. I'm like, what is going on? And I email, get nothing, hear nothing. It's like over a week goes by. I mean, this is ridiculous. I do a search, and I saw it was like on a Facebook, like a comic book Facebook page. Someone's like, hey, anyone have any problems with this or something like that? And then even though this was like an old thread, I'm like, yep, I had no response from anyone. So I emailed them again. I'm like, hey, what is the deal with this? Can I get some information? And they don't respond. And then there's like, here's your packing slip. It will ship out tomorrow. What is going on? And if there's something like, oh, the comics were delayed from the publisher, or we're trying to wait, or the copies we got in they were dead, they weren't in perfect condition, so we're trying to get more. Just talk to me. Let me know what is going on. And I finally got them. And they were, again, Mac, I'm almost like, man, if I submitted comics to CGC, I should submit these, because these are like perfect condition, like spines, like pristine. But I don't do that because it seems like a lot of work and whatever. I enjoyed the comics were pretty good. It's establishing who is Blue Falcon. Like in his civilian guise and his dog, and something major happens in the first issue, and so it's kind of interesting setting this up. Where we're at, it's not like, oh, day one of Blue Falcon, I'm going to wear this costume. He's already established. He's already out there doing stuff, and I think that's kind of cool, because and instead of having to like start from day one, he's already doing stuff. But we're seeing, and he gets a little violent sometimes, not like uber violence, but I like that because I haven't watched the cartoons in forever. He appeared on, there's a couple Scooby-Doo stuff where fairly recently he was on one where he can kind of be a little cheesy, whatever. So this is like but it's not like grim and dark and like breaking bones and stuff like that. But he's not messing around. So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. So that was Dynamite. There's some Thundercats comics that came out. I think that was it from the other publishers. And then at Image, I don't think there's a lot at Image. So there's Radiant Black 38. I'm so far behind with that. Feral 17. How is that? Okay, this is the thing. I enjoyed the first series. I read everything like that. Then it's like, oh, here's another one. I started reading, but then I got behind. I was like, well, it's a mini series. Okay, but no, now it's an ongoing. Now it's at issue 17, and I can't remember the last issue I read. Yeah, so we had some trade paperbacks. Department of Truth Volume 6 is out. Rook, Exodus, that's Jeff Johns and Jason Fabik. Then the only thing that I read was Rockefellers number 10. So this is Peter Tomasi and Francis Manapul. And I just enjoy this. I mean, the story's cool. The art is amazing. And, it's this family who is they fled from the future, and they're like in the present, and we in the past couple issues we've seen like what's happened in the future, like why they left, and and what it comes down to is like the father of the family, he's now being hunted by like his sister, and some horrible stuff happened, and she's getting closer and closer to like tracking it because they're hiding through time. They have no idea where they're at, and they're trying to little things like, can we trace this, trace that, whatever. So things like really heat up here, and it's just like yikes type of thing. So I'm really enjoying this. It's just a lot of fun, and and there's kind of like a Halloween theme as well, because the kids they're about it's like we need to jump to another time because we're gonna get caught here, and the kids like, well, can't we just go trick or treating, because they didn't really have trick or treating in their time period, and so and things aren't going to go too well. At Marvel, we had all new Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider #3. So Gwen has been dealing with like, who's this killer, what's going on, and I'm enjoying this comic. It's a little dark. I'm not super crazy. So she's sort of dating like the son of Black Tarantula or just Tarantula, but he seems like a good guy. I didn't care for him like in the beginning of the last series that she had. Yeah, so there's this thing that's out like killing people, and like some people were like close to her, and it's like, is this a symbiote? What's happening? And yeah, so I'm digging it. And now that Gwen is in the 616, she used like a cosmic cube powers, whatever, to set things up. So okay, that's fine. Then we had Battle World, horrible segue, transition, whatever. Battle World #2, and this is so weird. As I read this, I was like, wait a minute. I read the first issue, but what's weird is I think it was last week's or maybe the week before, Marvel Zombies #2. I don't know if I mentioned it, or I think I did. They introduced like secret friggin' wars in Marvel Zombies. It's like, holy crap. And I think it's brilliant, combining the two things. I love the original Secret Wars. And so now we're getting Secret Wars, but in the middle of Marvel Zombies everywhere. And that is crazy. Well, we also have this Battle World book, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like, wait, characters are taken, but what's different here is they're being taken from different periods in time. And so this new world is not made up of different parts of planets, but different time periods. How is that possible? Who's doing all this? And so we have Spider-Man. He's like 15 years old. He's like almost like no experience, and he's young. He's not the Spider-Man that we know now, who's like super confident, fairly super confident. And we have like kind of old, not really old man Hank Pym. I don't know if he's present day Hank, but we have him, and it's kind of cool. Oh, I just noticed on the cover, I feel like they mentioned someone on the cover, which I thought was like on the last page. It was kind of like a last page spoiler. I think I read this issue. So it's interesting. Yeah. What I don't like is arcade. There's an arcade here. This is well, no, I'll take it back. It is kind of interesting because it's arcade before that. What was it called? They did like the battle royale thing where characters from like Avengers Academy were kidnapped and put into like basically a battle royale Hunger Games type thing where they had to fight each other. And then I don't know if it was clear from day one, I don't remember, but arcade was like in charge of that. And so all these kids were, kids died, and this is an arcade before that where he's thinking about doing that, and Hank's like not happy with him because those were his students in that. So it just makes it interesting. I hate arcade. So yeah, the fact that he's there is like, ugh. Black Hat #3. I'm enjoying this. I love Black Hat, and I love when Black Hat gets the spotlight and everything. And the fact that this is written by G. Willow Wilson, that is awesome because she's a great writer. The previous series, Jed McKay, those were great too. But I is it sexist or whatever? I kind of like when a woman writes a female character because you have that perspective. Not saying that a guy can't write a female character, because if you're a great, Jed McKay did a great job because he is a great writer, so he can write male or female. And G. Willow Wilson, she can write female and male. So whatever. I don't know if that comes off as sexist, but I also appreciate that like the Spider-Gwen comics have been written by women. I don't think they're all the same. I'm trying to remember, but I know I've noticed that, and I think that there's something about that. At the same time, it's not like, well, this writer doesn't have superpowers, so they shouldn't be writing about a superpowered character. It's similar to, I don't know, but Black Cat, she's kind of done some like good, like heroic things. So it's like, wait, am I going to be a hero? What's going on? And there's sort of conspiracy stuff going on because she went after someone, and then like a picture of her and Daredevil was taken. So people are like, oh, are they dating now? And and she's getting this like positive press, which isn't really. It might make things a little harder for her to take on her gigs, but it might not be a bad thing. So it's interesting. Then we got these books are so annoying. We have Cloak or Dagger. This is an Age of Revelation. Cloak or Dagger #1. Oh my God, I hate these books. Apologies to whoever is involved with this, because it's not necessarily their fault. So Justina Ireland is the writer. Lorenzo Tometa is doing the pencils. I can barely read that. My eyes are like getting watery. The problem with this, I'm assuming when it's not like the writers are saying, hey, I want to do this Cloak and Dagger book, whatever. It might be, and maybe it's a matter of they're like, hey, we're doing this future X-Men story arc. And what do you want to, you want to do something? Pitch me your idea for this world. These are the parameters where this is happening with mutants. This is that, Doug Ramsey's doing this, whatever. What do you got? Who would you want to play with, and what? I don't know how it works. Or do they go up to him and say, hey, do you want to write a Cloak and Dagger story in this world and do this? Because my thing is, I really like Cloak and Dagger. I have some fondness for them. It was weird because when I first started reading comics, a friend of mine, he was like buying Cloak and Dagger comics, and I was just like, I had read them in Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man. I didn't love them, but then my friend was getting Cloak and Dagger comics, so I would read his Cloak and Dagger comics. He was also getting Doctor Strange that came out and like at that same time. So I read his comics, and I was like, well, I'm not going to buy it because I was still buying so many comics. He was just buying a few. We would let each other read each other's comics and that. I don't know if it's maybe because of the TV show, Olivia Holt, but I really like Cloak and Dagger, and we don't have like a proper Cloak and Dagger comic. It feels like it's been hard, and there's even like oh, let's include them in the X-Men. Are they mutants? Are they not? Where are we going with this? But this. And this wasn't, I take that back. I didn't hate this book so much. I just hate all of these books. This issue, it was okay. They're doing some stuff. They're trying to save some people, and there's like, of course, the bad guys and all this stuff going on. I just hate, what I hate about it is any of this going to matter? Because this isn't a future. This is a future that's never going to happen. And our thing is going to get erased or reverted or whatever. So I know the point is these are stories for entertainment, so you read them. It doesn't have to be like we're establishing all this history or whatever, but that's kind of how it is. I don't know. Death of the Silver Surfer, issue 5. This has been okay. Again, this is another Greg Pak. I have deep respect for Greg. I always like his stories, but I think the problem for me is the main antagonist, the main woman. She was kind of vicious in a way. She was the dude she was working for is a complete scumbag, and there's a lot of like anti-alien stuff, and she was just like whatever. She's policing stuff and just doing what she's supposed to be doing. Her job, and like she's like, well, I don't care, Silver Surfer. We're doing this and that. She's made, caused some mistakes to happen and that. So seeing like the crappy things she's done, and then it's like, wait, well, I'm supposed to feel sorry for you now? It's like, it doesn't work that way. So it's been okay. It's been interesting. And it's like, what does this mean, with this? Because there's no like label like, oh, this is alternate, this is Marvel Legends, this is whatever they're calling this stuff. So it's like, are we going to see this are we going to see more of this is I guess what I'm wondering. So because there's some interesting stuff, but yeah, there's that. Emma Frost, issue 5. I think this is the last issue, and this has been. I've kind of enjoyed. I've pretty much enjoyed this. Surprisingly, I've enjoyed this because my main problem with something like this is, well, this is a book that's taking place in the past, so you can't really go that far out of continuity. You know, it's saying, oh, this takes place after these issues. That means, well, you can't really do any huge developments because we know where the character is at the next time they appear or whatever. It's been interesting seeing like the betrayal, you know, the people trying to get her booted out of the Hellfire Club and stuff like that, and the hunt for her and her fighting, and I've enjoyed it, even though surprisingly, because I don't like when they're saying this takes place between this issue and this issue, then that means nothing's going to happen. You know, it's a story for entertainment. I'm just looking at it. It's like, well, I don't have a lot of time to read, so I want, whatever. I've talked about this so much. Expatriate, X-Men. Honestly, I skimmed this issue. I don't even remember what this issue is about, and I just know I didn't like it. So yeah, we have that. I think Kamala Khan's in it. Well, I don't know. Imperial number 4. This is the last issue, even though there's more. No, I think there's like She-Hulk. There's other stuff coming out. There's like a She-Hulk, Nova, Black Panther, and Wiccan books. It was fine. I think it's the Marvel Galactic stuff, cosmic stuff. I'm not a big fan of for some reason. I don't understand why. Because I like science fiction. I like Marvel. But something about it, and I still do not understand the whole space Wakandan stuff. Because, like, here's Black Panther out here in space, and Shuri's out there and everything. But it's like, wait, Black Panther, weren't you just, like, with the Avengers and the Impossible City or whatever? Now you're, like, out across the galaxy and being accused of this or that. It's like, how does this fit in? And I don't know. A lot of betrayals and stuff with Inhumans, and I'm still not really sure where we stand with this, like what was established. I think, and I'll admit, I ended up skimming a little this issue because I'm just like, okay. So I think I see what's been established in that, and some people are not happy with like choices being made, but it's all, there's some of the politics of the matter. You have these different empires in that, and so sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and so we'll see what's next. I don't know. There is Rivals King in Black. I don't know anything about Marvel Rivals. It's a game. I do Marvel Puzzle Quest, which is so frustrating at times with they've like updated stuff, and it's just ugh. But I don't really know much about Rivals, so I'm not playing that. But it's almost like just another continuity. So that's cool if you're into the games. You can do different stuff, but yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Runaways number 5. I think this was the last issue. There's some developments with
ones like Nico and like Doombot, because it's so silly because there's a Doombot that's been part of the Runaways, and he's good, he's separate, but because of the Emperor Doom stuff, he's being recalled back, so they've been hunted by, it's like all this stuff. But I've enjoyed this, and I like that Rainbow Rowell was writing it, because it feels like I've mentioned this before, I'm sure. It feels like it picked up like right after the last series that she wrote, and I'm curious, what's going to be next, because we'll see. I feel like, I don't know if there's really a place for the Runaways is a problem. I'm wondering, like, how many people are reading Runaways? Is there still an audience? I hope so, because there's some cool characters, and I feel like there's a lot of potential. I don't know. They don't necessarily always get the spotlight. There's Star Wars Dr. Aphra Chaos Agent number 5. I think, is this the last issue of this? Which is weird. It felt like it didn't seem like there was like next issue. We find out it says on the cover, Dr. Aphra's long lost sister revealed at last. Now, I'm curious. I'm interested. I kind of like this character of Dr. Afra. I think there's something cool about the character. I would love to see like live action, like a Disney Plus Dr. Afra show, because she's smart and she's not necessarily good. She's that whole gray area, and I think that makes for an interesting, complex character and everything. I don't know if you could do a show because if she has interactions with Luke Skywalker once in a while or Han Solo. Are you going to CG them in? I don't know if people would want that, but I think you could tell a story where she doesn't have to have any of those main characters. With this, the stuff with her sister and I wasn't aware that she had a long lost sister, because maybe I haven't read all the issues before. I just couldn't keep up and I stopped reading. But I thought I enjoyed this series, and I'm kind of bummed. I've actually been reading this series where all 5 issues I've read, and now I think it's over. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe she'll pop up later. There's Boba Fett, Black, White, and Red, #2. I don't think I read #1, but I was like, I'm curious. I love Boba Fett. Let's see what they can do with this. This was I was afraid with these issues. It seems like, and maybe because I'm just not reading them, but I always thought they always did like 2 or 3 stories in there, and so it's like you got these shorter stories, which sometimes are just too fast, and there's not enough development in the story. That's fine, whatever. Again, gives people a chance to have their shot at working on a character. This is actually like a full issue length story with Solid and Ahmed. We're doing the writing, and then Ramon Rosales does the art. It was. I enjoyed this. I could see here Boba Fett was the right level of badassness, and because some people complain about the Disney Plus or the Book of Boba Fett didn't quite have that level. He was kind of knocked down some pegs, which is fine. Because it's changing the character and evolving the character and telling the story. But this, he's after this dude, and we're seeing different things, and I feel like to have like an ongoing Boba Fett story could be difficult, because it's going to be the same thing. Oh, he's got a bounty, he's going after, he catches him. Oh, he's got a bounty, he's going after, catches him. So to try to mix it up and make it interesting, I think that could get a little tricky. But the story here, I enjoyed it. Would I want this month after month? I don't know about that. Then there is the Mortal Thor #3. We get some answers here, because I'm been kind of like, the Sigurd dude is like, is this Thor? Because that was one of Thor's human names or whatever. And I don't even know the whole, because I don't think I really read those issues, so I don't know why was Thor posing as a human dude that looked just like Thor, like straight, Norwegian or whatever. But here it's like, he's not Thor, or is he Thor? And then there's this little sort of kid outside doing like mystical things for him. And at first I was like, is this that one who's that kid that's part of the Eternals? I'm totally blanking on a name. I was like, is this that kid? What are they doing here? But then I guess we find out who that kid is, but yeah, they're just the fact is Sigurd with his little hammer, and he gets violent with it, and it's when people come after him, it's just pretty interesting. I'll say that. I have no idea where this series is going, but I'm definitely intrigued, and I feel bad that I stopped reading the last. I wasn't reading the last Thor volume, but. Yeah, definitely interesting things. Then we got Undeadpool, Age of Revelation, blah. And basically, I think Deadpool, for whatever reasons, how he's evolved and I skimmed through it. I tried, why am I doing this? He's like killing people, like energy. He's like a energy vampire or something, and it's just, whatever. That's what I say. There was a Venom, Black, White, and Blood. I did not read this. This one, I think, had multiple stories, and I don't even remember. I thought I looked up who wrote those. Then there was a X-Avengers, Age of Revelation #1. Blah, another one. It's annoying. But if you look at the cover, it's like, oh, Danny Moonstar's got Captain America's shield. That's interesting. I can dig that. I'm not the biggest Moonstar fan, but I have respect for her. As you know, it's like she's a leader of the New Mutants, and so I think that's cool. You find out like why, and you look at Shang-Chi, like what's up with him, and there's some interesting things here with how the world has changed and all that. But still, I just don't care enough to. It's like I don't. Yeah, I regret that I spent the time, but yeah, I'm trying to keep up with it. So yeah, we had all that. Then at DC, just like nothing came out from DC, hardly anything. There was a Batman annual, and I feel like I mentioned this, yeah, because I saw the previews. Daniel Warren Johnson wrote this, and not Scott Snyder. No, not saying that like Scott Snyder owns Absolute Batman, but it feels weird. Like if they were going to do an Absolute Wonder Woman annual, and it wasn't Kelly Thompson, I'd be like, what are you doing? It's like, you can't do that. But as we get this story, and I think I did a little more than just skim, but I didn't read all of this because I'm just not a fan of this version of the character, because I feel like it's just too over the top, too violent, and it's just not. I mean, it's a different version of Batman, which is great and fine, because some people want that rough and gritty Batman. Me, whatever. So this is a little bit in the past. I think this is before maybe in the first issue, and it's kind of Batman versus Nazis, or whatever. Okay, great. Let them be violent on them, but it's just, yeah. I mean, there is a stuff to the story and some stuff about we see like flashbacks with his dad and that. So there's some value in. I mean, I'm sure if you were into the regular series, you're going to enjoy this. But yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of any of the Absolute, except for I'm mainly just reading Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman, and kind of Absolute Green Lantern, but not totally. Then there's Batman Long Halloween, which I got behind on that. I don't even know what issue it's on. There was a Superman Red and Blue 2025 Spectacular. I didn't read this. I'm not even sure who worked on this. I meant to look this up. It's like, oh, should I get this? Should I read this? But I don't even know who's involved. Because if there is a great creative team, like writer, artist, I will read it, even though I know there's going to be no lasting impact. This is just meant to be, you like Superman, here's some cool Superman stories. So told in a slightly different, format, focusing on red and blue. So yeah, I need to look into that, because I would be willing if there's good creators working on it. And then we have Batman and Robin Year One. I think this is the last issue. So this is Mark Waid and Chris Samnee. This has just been a lot of fun. Something about this young Robin is his attitude, and it's been nice seeing young Dick Grayson and just the trouble they've been dealing with is trying to establish like Bruce Wayne taking in this kid. It's like why is he this playboy bachelor having a kid? What is he going to do with it? And just the fact that like a dude wanting to adopt a dude or a kid, of course there's going to be implications like how are you providing for this kid? And which is unfortunate that you're going to get those accusations or whatever. But yeah, there's some of that, and I've enjoyed just the adventure. The fact that it was like this Two-Face, Clayface story, like whatever. It just felt like it was very long, but it's been fun and just very refreshing. So hopefully we'll get a year 2. We'll have to see. But that is it. That's all we're going to see about comics. There's more. But that's comics for the week. All right, first show, not many shows this week. We have the first episode of It, Welcome to Derry. And it's called The Pilot. At first when I saw this, I was like, okay, it's the first episode, so it's a pilot episode, right? And then I was like, is that really the name of the episode? Because a lot of times, I know it feels like Disney Plus does this where when the episode first comes out, they don't always put the title up. And I don't know if they're holding back so they don't potentially spoil something. Usually within maybe a couple hours or the next day or whatever, they'll put the title up there.
So then I watched this episode and I will look to, I was like, oh, it still says a pilot. I was like, are they really just calling it the pilot episode? Because the second episode has a title. And then I was like, oh no, it's the pilot because we got a dude that's a pilot. So that's probably why they called it that. I think so. I really enjoyed this. And it was interesting, watching this. I was like, when this first came out, I'm like, okay, this looks like it's taking place in the 50s or 60s. It's taking place in like 1962. And when I saw that, I was like, why are they doing that? Because the original took place in the 50s. So I was like, that seems really weird that they're doing this again, because we have that time period. So it's like, why are we getting these again? And the reason is, no, it's not the same. So in the book, the early time period was 1957, 1958. And then the adult part was 27 years later, which is 94 to 95. But then I was like, wait, no, but they changed it in the movie, because you can't have it 1950 whatever and then 27 years later. That doesn't add up. So it's actually, for when they did the movie, they did the kids section, and it's like, maybe it's been a while since I watched it. I just didn't even think about it. Or I'm thinking about the original TV movie, the ABC movie. I think it was ABC, where the kids time period was in 1989, and then the adult section to adults. So why do I keep saying that? The adult time period was in 2016. So if you think about that, if the kids section was, the kids period was 1989, and then if you go 27 years before that, you get 1962, which is where this movie takes place. So brilliant. They're able to create a new story, keep the franchise going, whatever, do new content, and it fits along with the movies. Because I was so confused. I was like, you can't have this movie be so close to the original time period, because it just doesn't make sense. It's got to be 27 years. I'm pretty sure it is 27, right? I'm not crazy. Well, that's another question. But it makes sense because this is following the movie time period. So I think that's a really good idea, and it's cool that they did it that way. So I enjoyed this. It's interesting watching this. If you're going to do a TV series, you kind of have to be careful. And I think I saw a quote or something about this, because we're talking 8 episodes. According to IMDb, they're planning on doing 3 seasons. So I wonder if that means they're going to stretch out this time period over 3 seasons, or what does that necessarily mean? But I think you have to be careful, because if you're telling these stories, you can't have Pennywise. You can't have him all the time, because that's going to take like the charm or the allure or whatever. It's not going to be quite the same. You can't just have him all the time. And I think that was a problem with like Freddy Krueger. We had all these Freddy Krueger movies, Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Then we had that Nightmare on Elm Street TV show, which was a little, it got to be kind of goofy when he was doing like the intros and outros, whatever. It got to be too comedic. And, Freddy wasn't scary anymore, because he was cracking jokes all the time. So I think you really have to be careful with how you handle it. And so with this, we do get some Pennywise, but it's not just like, right away. I think, well, I was going to say, you can like build up the characters and everything, but unfortunately, not all the characters are going to be around, is what it seems like. And so let's just get to it. So spoilers for this episode. Interesting choices made, and it's not quite what you think, which is very interesting that they're doing it this way. So it starts off, we see like this old film theater. There's this dude. He's he's talking like some others about you just hear the audio, like about the signs of corruption, the minute your son leaves the house, blah blah blah, all this stuff like that. And the audience, there's people of all ages, which is kind of interesting, because there's like a teen couple making out, there's some old folk, and then there's this kid with a pacifier, and he's like, he's an older kid, and it's like, wait, why does he have a pacifier? And this lady, like a couple rows in front of him, kind of turns around and shushes him, but it's like there's other kids in there, whatever. And then this usher comes in, like shines a
a light on him. And he's like, hey, get over here. So the kid runs the other direction. And then this guy named Hank, he asks Cal to usher. He's like, what's going on? And he says, it's that Clemens boy again. He's like, the third time this week, I caught him sneaking in for a freebie. And Hank's like, oh, he's like, why don't you just leave him be? He's like, you ever see that boy's family? The kid is actually hiding behind this big display. So this girl, her name is, I think her name is Ronnie. And, she like looks at him, and Cal's like, well, pity's not going to keep the lights on. But it's like, okay, Cal, is this your theater? I don't think it was, because he seemed like he was just a usher. I get it. You don't want people sneaking in your theater, but it's like, calm down. It's not like it's taking money out of your pocket. So, I don't know. Ronnie is Hank's daughter, and when Hank asked her, because he asked her, Ronnie, like if she saw a boy run by, so she lies and she's like, oh, he went that way. So Cal goes running in that direction. Then Hank and Ronnie go up to the film booth. So Hank is like the projectionist, because he's going to work on a new reel, and I think he says the Music Man or something, or he starts talking about the Music Man or something, like the day, I don't know. Kid comes out from behind the display. He starts walking, but then Cal came back. And he turns around and he sees him, he yells. So the kid runs out, and it's like snowing outside. Cal's like, next time I'm calling the police. It's like, okay, you're calling the police because someone snuck into the theater. So it's like, yeah, really breaking a lot. Yeah, whatever. So the kid's walking, he's got the pacifier, and he takes it out because he's going to hitch a ride. So as soon as the car comes out, he like takes the pacifier out, because I guess he doesn't want to be seen with it. Just one I don't know if it was a truck, I don't remember, he goes by, another car comes, he takes pacifier out again. So there's this couple in front, and they're asking if he's all right. The lady says, why don't you get in before you catch, your death of cold or whatever. So he goes in the back seat. There's this older girl and a younger boy in the back. The mom hands the kid, like, his name is Maddie, by the way. We find that out later. So she hands him her jacket to wrap himself up. And then the dad's like, where's home? And, let us know and we'll get you there safe and sound. So Maddie, he's like, anywhere but Derry. So then the lady, the mom, she's like, well, we're headed to Portland, so you hitched a right ride. Dad turns on the radio. It's like, top stories, more underground nuclear tests out of Moscow. Experts warn resulting radiation poses a global risk with potential consequences ranging from cancer to genetic mutations. The girl, she asked her dad, she's like, can you put something else on? She's like, this stuff gives me the willies. Then her brother, his name's Ray, not that it matters, he starts like spelling willies, and she cuts him off. And mom's like, oh, says to Matt, he's like, he's going through a phase and he spells everything. So then she starts giving him words to spell, and she's giving him some kind of tricky words and stuff like that. Then the girl, her name's Arlene, she picks up a container marked liver. And she opens it up, and Maddie's watching. She sticks her hands in the juice, and she like smells it, and she notices that Maddie's like watching her. So she puts it like in his face, and he tries turning away, and then she like yells at her brother because he can't spell trouble. He's like T-R-U, and she's like, no, it's T-R. She's like yelling, but he spelled tougher words than that. And then the mom tells her, it's like, oh, why don't you be nice? And she's like, I am nice. And she kind of like whispers to Maddie, she's like, when I want to be. So then mom's like, there goes my little harlot. Couldn't glue those legs together if you tried, I tell you. Which I was like, what? You're saying that for your kids? And the dad like chuckles, and he's like, reminds me of you. He says it to the mom. So then all four laugh, and they're like laughing like loud. So Maddie's like confused. Then he sees, as they're driving, there's a welcome to Derry sign again, because there was one when they picked them up. So you see this big sign, but they're driving away from it, but now they're driving towards it, and he's kind of confused. He's like, I thought you said we're headed to Portland. And then the mom, so she's still rattling off words to spell. She's like, spells vasectomy, baby. Ray, he's like, can you use it in a sentence? And she says, something like that. So then Maddie's like, can you pull over, please? Like, there's a gas station here. I have to go, to the bathroom. So dad turns up the radio. Then mom asks Ray to spell necrosis. Then he spells it. Then she's like, kidnapping. I think this is where he said he has to pee. And then mom's like, maggots, cadaver, strangulation, all these words. So he tries the door, but it's locked. Then he starts yelling. He's like, let me out, let me out. And then the kid, Ray, spells O-U-T. And then they all repeat, they're like, they all join in. They're like, O-U-T, O-U-T. So Maddie like reaches over for the back seat, grabs the wheel, and Dad's like, well, I'll handle a driving. And then someone accidentally hits the mom in the stomach. I couldn't tell if it was a dad or Maddie as they're struggling with the steering wheel. So it hits her in the stomach, and she's pregnant. You couldn't really tell before. She lifts her dress, and she's like, looks like someone else wants to get out. O-U-T. And then they're all like, O-U-T, O-U-T. It's like, what the heck is going on? It's like so bizarre. And she starts screaming, her stomach's like pulsing, and it's like getting bigger. And then the baby like pushes out of her crotch, obviously. And then it like flop, falls on the floor. And it's like quiet. And you can hear the baby kind of crying. And the dad's like, it's beautiful. So mom reaches down. You can't see like at her feet because it's like dark down there because it's nighttime. And, the kid, Maddie's like looking, he can't see. So she reaches out in the dark. And then there's this demon baby with like one wing. It flies past and it hits like the back window. And there's like a little crack and like some blood on the back windshield. They're like in a station wagon. So there's like some like suitcases and whatever stuff back there. So the kid, Maddie, he looks back, but he can't see anything because of all the stuff. And then it starts moving. And then the demon baby pops up. And you can see there's like a second head growing on its neck, like it absorbed a twin or whatever. The mom, she still has umbilical cord. She like grabs it. It bangs into the windshield, and it's like trying to fly around, but it only has one wing. So it's like very like awkward or whatever, flopping around. It's like hits the windshields and everything. So Maddie puts a pacifier in his mouth. He like covers his ears, whatever. He's turned to like looking out the window. And then they all look at him, including like the demon baby. Then from the outside, as you see the car driving by, then there's like psh against the side window, and you can't really tell like what it hit, but you see the flat pacifier flying out. They're like driving over a bridge, so the pacifier, falls out, hits, lands in the water, and it floats, and then you get like the opening logo. Welcome to Derry. Then it's 4 months later, so it's April 1962. We see this kid like looking through like a little like a spy telescope. What do you call those? The single telescopes like that pirates use or whatever. Anyways, he's got one of those. There's like this plane flying by. So some soldiers get off this big plane. One complains that there's probably 0 nightclubs in Derry. The other guy says that he's like, well, we survived Korea. I'm pretty sure we can survive this. So this Colonel Fuller, he salutes them. And he called, so the one guy is Major Hanlon, and the other guy that was complaining, his name is Captain Russo. They're driving in a Jeep, and the colonel's like, your skills and experience will be put to good use here, Major. He says that this is one of 6 SAC bases, so I had to look that up, Strategic Air Command, I think it was. One of 6 SAC bases in the entire country. He's like, it might seem somewhat remote, but it's the northernmost continental United States Air Force base, and we're the tip of the spear. Soviet airspace is a brisk 7-hour flight. In other words, when a nuclear poop hits a fan, we'll be the first call. So Hank Hanlon, he corrects him, and he says, if it hits a fan. He's like, I'm a bit of an optimist. So Russo's like, I'm not. Okay, so it also Hanlon, he's black. Because that's going to be a thing in a bit. And Russo is white. Not that that matters. Maybe it does. I don't know. So the colonel says, because Russo's like points the building while they're driving. He's like, what's in there? And the colonel's like, that's special projects. Because you see there's this fence and there's guards and there's a signs like restricted area. It's unlawful to enter without the authority of the base commander and all this stuff. So the colonel says to Hanlon that he understands that he's only living on a base temporarily. And Hanlon's like, yes. He's like, I'm renting a house in town. He's like, should be set up by the time my family gets here. He's like, after 8 years living on base, it's like, I'm sure my missus is ready for a taste of normal. And the colonel's like, well, if normal is what you're after, you're going to love Derry. Yeah, really? So then it goes to Derry High School. All the kids are staring at this girl walking down the hall. She opens the locker, and this jar of pickles comes crashing down, like on the floor. And there's like a few other jars in there. Her friend comes up to her. She's like, Lil, are you okay? She's like, yeah. Talk about the other people. She calls them a bunch of fudging cretins. And Lily's like, I'm fine. So they start walking down the hall. The girl says, what was her name? I'll think of it in a second. She says that her aunt said that they can come over any weekend they want this summer. and her cousin Ray has parties at the beach are crazy. Then it's shifted, as they're walking down the hall, we see a couple boys, and one, he's like, well, we're not alone in the universe, right? And the younger one, his name's Teddy. The older one is Phil. Teddy's like, did Lily Bainbridge just, check us out? When they walk by. First kid, Phil, he ignores it. He's talking about like nuclear stuff, and he's like, well, maybe we're a threat to other planets. He's like, maybe visitors from the red planets are already here secretly. Maybe that's what's going on over at that air base. Maybe they got one on ice and they're experimenting on it. So then Teddy's like, he's like, you've been sitting too close to the TV again, haven't you? So Phil, the older kid, he's kind of annoying, I find, and we'll see more of him. But he's all about like conspiracies and stuff like that. At the base, Hanlon and Russo arrive in this hangar. Colonel tells Hanlon that these are his men, so they fall in line and salute. Except for this one guy, he's moving slow. So why is he moving so slow? Because he's obviously going to be racist. There's always something like that. There's always like pieces of crap that it's like, and yeah, okay, it's 1962, but the thing is, Hanlon's a major. And he's got this like incredible record. This dude, he never even salutes. And then this one guy, like First Airman O'Donnell, he says that he's like, we've been expecting you. It's an honor. So he's like, this is the rest of the Soviet squadrons, MX, something like that. So they're all introduces. The last guy is Airman Second Class Masters, and Hanlon steps up to Masters. He's like, Airman Masters. He's like, now I'm your superior commissioned officer, so I expect to be accorded the respect of said rank. Do I make myself clear? And then the dude, Masters, he's like, I'll get you next time, brother. And then someone else, you hear a voice like, is there a problem here? And Masters like, no, sir, General Shaw. And he like salutes. He salutes Shaw. And then Shaw's like, remind me, Colonel, what's the penalty for a Code 89 violation? So I looked this up. It is like disrespect to a superior officer. So the colonel's like, court-martial, sir. And Shaw's like, so I ask you once again, do we have a problem? So then Masters, he like pauses for a couple seconds. He almost like he grits his teeth, whatever. And then he turns to Hanlon and he salutes. So the general asks Hanlon to walk with him. And then, as they're walking away, he like apologizes for the subpar welcome. And he's like, why don't you swing by, my office tomorrow, like around 1500 hours, because we'll get properly acquainted. And he's like, yes, sir. He's like, I'll be there. So then the dude driving the Jeep, he like turns and gives him a look. And he's like almost like frowning. While they're driving, he drove Sean and Hanlon and the colonel. He turned back and looked at him also. So there's like something up with this dude. And this dude is, you may have heard, I mentioned it last week, is Dick Halloran from The Shining is going to be in it. So I'm like 99.9% positive because I think you see him in the preview at the end. This is Dick Halloran. But it's like, why is he like frowning at him? I don't know. But because he kind of like locks eyes with Hanlon. So then it's night. The boys that we saw, Phil and Teddy, they're hanging out in, I think it was, I don't know if it's Teddy, it must be Teddy's bedroom. Phil is like peeping out at the neighbor getting changed, and Teddy's like sitting at a desk, and he says that he's trying to focus on homework. So Phil's he's going on about like aliens, and like I think he's writing a story. He's working on the pictures because I think he wants like Teddy to do the writing or something like that, because maybe Teddy's probably smarter. So then he asks him what's wrong, and Teddy's like, today is 4 months to the day since Maddie. And the other kid's like, yeah, it's like so messed up. And he's like, anyway, I was like, I'll keep working on the illustrations. You keep working on it. And then Teddy's like, I'm trying to talk about Maddie. And it feels like, what's talking about it going to do? Bring him back to life? And Teddy's like, they never found a body. And Phil's like, don't start this again. And Teddy's like, that usually means he's a runaway. And Phil's like, why would he run away? And Teddy's like, gee, I don't know. Maybe because he just about had no friends in the whole wide world, and the only ones he did have had to be paid to go to his birthday. Phil's like, we weren't paid. It's like, candy isn't money, Teddy. And Teddy's like, same thing. Phil's like, his mom offered us that candy fair and square. We were doing her a favor, a good deed. And Teddy's like, we didn't even know it was his birthday. And Phil's like, look, whatever happened to Maddie wasn't because we forgot his stupid birthday, okay? None of this is our fault, whether you accept it or not. Maddie's dead. And then Teddy just like walks out of the room. Then we see Lily. She's in the bathroom, like looking in the mirror, and it's almost like she's practicing trying to look happy. And then she starts thinking back to Maddie. So he lights up this ladder, and they go up to this in this building, this like viewing deck. It's supposed to be closed off because he says it's been closed to the public for years. But Teddy and Phil, they tried sneaking in one day, and they found out that the caretaker doesn't bother locking up anymore. So they turned it into a sort of like secret hangout. So then we see that this is Maddie, because you don't see his face before, and you don't know who he is, that he's Maddie, but he's the one from the hitchhiking. So she says that the view is beautiful up there, and he's like, well, maybe don't tell Phil and Teddy. He's like, we're not supposed to bring guests without checking in with each other first. And she's like, it's not because I'm Loony Lily Bainbridge. And he's like, you're not loony, not to me. And then after a pause, he's like, what happened that day with your dad? And then he kind of like, it's like awkward and pause. And he's like, sorry, I shouldn't have. And she's like, my mom and I went back to pick up my dad. He worked at the jarring plant on Willoughby, pickles and stuff. We were leaving the factory when I realized I'd forgotten something inside. This mood ring I bought at the Five and Dimes. It was just a cheap, stupid toy. But he went back in to get it. And I don't know. I don't know. One of the machines jammed up. Wasn't even his station. But my dad, he always wanted to help. They said that he climbed into the gears. I guess he thought that they killed the power, but when the foreman realized it was on another station, it was too late. If I hadn't made him go back, and Maddie's like, you couldn't have known. It was just a terrible accident. And then fireworks start going off, and they're watching, and he's like, Happy New Year. And then she's like, thanks for letting me talk about it. No one else does. Not Marge. That was her friend's. Friend's name was Marge. She's like, not Marge or the patty cakes. And then he's like, you're not like those girls. And she's like starting to realize that, for better or for worse, I guess. He's like, for better. And then he moves closer and closes his eyes to kiss her, and she like moves back. And he's like, I'm sorry, that was stupid. And she's like, no, it's okay. It's just that we're friends. And Maddie's like, it's fine, really, it is. I should head back anyways. If my pop catches me out at a bed at this hour, he'll, just like sighs. And she's like, I didn't mean it like that. He's like, I gotta go. And she's like, Maddie, wait. And he like goes down the stairs. So back in the present, her mom knocks on the door, reminds her to lay her clothes out for tomorrow morning. And she's like, remember? She's like, we're going to visit your father at the cemetery. And Lily's like, if it's all the same, I don't think I'm going to go. And her mom's like, it's been a year. You haven't visited his grave even once. And she's like, I know, I'm just not ready. So her mom's like, you're not the only person to have something awful happen to them. The sooner you realize that, the better. And she's like, don't forget to take your medication. So then Lily like turns off the water in the bathtub, and she hears like a voice talking about trouble in the city, like trouble, trouble, trouble. And she's like, Maddie, is that you? Where are you? Maddie, if it's you, if you can hear me, just come home, all right? Just please come home. And then you hear all of a sudden, he won't let me. And she like screams. And there's like a bloody finger like poking out of the tub. So it's like, oh man. At school, she tells her friend, Margie, about this. She's like, Maddie Clements, or her friend's like, Maddie Clements speaking to you through the pipes? And she's like, just forget it. And Margie's like, well, and saying how you barely said one word to this kid when he was alive, why is it that he's reaching out to you from beyond the grave? So they're like walking down the hall, and they see some popular girls. So her friend's like, hi, Patty. And her friend's like says hi. And then Margie like pulls her into the bathroom, and they go in like a stall. And she's like, Lily's like, what are you doing? And Margie's like, I'm making sure that you don't talk about this because what you're saying is crazy. And Lily's like, I know what I heard. And Margie's like, listen to me. We've only got 2 more months until summer. Let's just get through them without giving everyone something new to whisper about you. And Lily's like, about me or about us? And she like walks out of the stall. And Margie's like, what's that supposed to mean? And then they hear like a fart. There's a lady at the there's a girl putting makeup in the mirror. She's like, it wasn't me. And they just keep staring at her, and she like rushes out. But just like I don't think there's anyone else in there. So then Lily's like, are you worried about what people will think of me, or what Patty and all of them will think of you because of me? And Margie's like, Jesus, Lil. She's like, I'm trying to be your friend, but sometimes you make it really hard. And she walks out. But it's like, I think Lily's got a point. So Phil and Teddy are riding their bikes, and Phil is going on about how there has to be a reason that men have nipples. So he's always talking about random things. Teddy says, maybe it's just like, having tails and gills, they just evolved out of it. And Phil's like, well, maybe it's nature's way of saying that, we're next in line to feed babies if something happens to women. Then they stop and they see Lily sitting at a bench by the lookout tower place. And Teddy's like, what are you doing here? And Phil's like, yeah, and how much of that did you hear? So she says that she needs to talk to them. So then inside, up top, Phil says that, he swore to keep his mouth shut about this place, and they only brought him there like one time. And she's like, one time? She's like, weren't you guys best friends? And he's like, it's complicated. And Teddy's like, okay, so you're positive it was Maddie, right? And she's like, it was his voice, I'm sure. I don't know what it means. I thought if anyone would care, if anyone would believe me, it'd be you guys. And Phil pulls Teddy aside. He's like, don't tell me you're buying into this cockadoodle story. And Teddy's like, you mean cockamamie? And Phil's like, both those. And he's like not saying it like super quiet, so she must be able to hear him. He's like, this story's insane. He's like, look who it's coming from. And he's like, I know it sounds impossible, but maybe it's just improbable. And then Phil's like, Teddy, for this to be true, Maddie would have to still be alive, and he'd have to know where every single one of Derry's pipes starts and ends, and at the exact time Lily was about to take a bath, and how to aim his voice down a certain pipe, so he could, stick his little finger up there and just wave hello to her. Teddy's like, Phil, you've explained 100 ways how aliens have come to Earth, tracking our smell, pretending to be dogs, probing our anus. And he's like, ani, for plural. And Teddy's like, you've proven, quote unquote, proven all of that to me. Yet you can't just believe that Maddie is trying to get in contact with someone he actually knows. She's like, so you do believe me? And Teddy's like, look, Lily, I want to. I'm trying to. There's plenty of unbelievable things out there that people believe, and I'm sure some of them are true. I'm just not so sure about this one. So then she leaves and walks down the stairs. At the Air Force Base, Major Hanlon goes to the general's office. He's about to have a drink, and he tells him that Masters is going to spend a week on latrine duty, and a citation is going to go on his permanent flight record. He's like, I won't stand for that kind of horse poop on my base. So Hanlon raises his glass. He's like, to less horse poop. The general says that he heard from General Abbott, who he served with under Korea, that he's about the bravest damn pilot he's ever met. And he says, Hanlon's like, well, I don't really want to talk about Korea. And then when he asks why, he says because he didn't finish the job. And the general says, like, well, that's why we transferred you up here. It's like to test our new B-52, and if necessary, fly it straight into the heart of the enemy. Then he asks, he's like, why the Air Force? And Hanlon says that, he was raised on a farm, so they had a family friend that would come like twice a month, like I think plow the field or something like that. So his father wanted him to tag along, and he just took to it. Then Hanlon asked the general, he's like, how about you? And he says it was his dad. He fought in every American conflict from the Indian Wars to the Philippines until they shoved him behind a desk. The only thing he loved more than his country was his family. So he told him that, like, the proudest moment of his life was when he signed up to be a doughboy. He's like, I can only imagine your father felt the same way. And Hanlon's like, he was proud, all right. He used to always say there's nothing wrong with this country that can't be fixed by what's right with this country. He's like, I aim to prove him right, sir. So then at Teddy's, it's dinner time. So their dad says a prayer. Teddy's studying for his bar mitzvah. Dad asks how's his studying going, and Teddy's like, tastes good. And then he asks his dad, so he was not really paying attention. He asks his dad if he can ask like a weird question. And he's like, do you think it's possible to kidnap a kid and keep him underground? And like mom says something, whatever, and the older brother's like, what's wrong with you? Teddy just keeps asking. He's like, yeah, just keep him there in the sewers for months and months, hurting him, or I don't know. Have you ever heard of something like that? The dad's like, your grandparents escaped Buchenwald. It's like their entire families murdered. The skin of Jewish prisoners used for lampshades. We are Jews, Theodore. We knew better than anyone the real horrors of this world. And then he gets a glimpse. You can see like a comic like under his studies. He's like, reality is terrifying enough as it is. And he yanks the comic out. It's Flash 123, Flash of Two Worlds, which is, I appreciate this because I looked up the date. It came out September 1961, and this takes place in 1962, so it makes sense that he would actually have this comic. He read it before or got it from a friend or something like that. Dad's like, reality is terrifying enough as it is. He's like, so cut it out with the fantasy. And he tosses, like whips a comic across the room. And then he points to like his plate. I was like eat? I don't know. So it's like, oh my gosh, man. It's just relax. It's so upsetting that, I don't know, for a dad to do something like that. So later he's in his bedroom. Now he's reading a detective comics. The cover looked familiar. I don't know what issue it was, and I didn't try figuring it out. His light turns off. So he turns it back on, reads, shuts off again, turns it back on, turns off, turns it back on. But then, like this time, he looks at the lampshade, and it's made of skin, and there's like faces, like with the mouth sewn shut, like it's trying to talk, and there's like you can see like wisps of hair sticking out and everything like that. It's like, really gross looking. So he like scoots back, and he's kicking back. He kicks his pillow, and the pillow hits and knocks the lamp over. And he like ends up falling off the bed on the other side, and the light's kind of like flickering from the other side of the bed. It's like in between them, and then he still hears like the muffled voice, and then the lamp starts rolling towards him, and there's like multiple faces like around the lamp, and one mouth opens up, and it's like it starts screaming. So Teddy's on the floor trying to cover his face and his ears. He finally like uncovers his face, and the light's like off, and the lamp isn't in sight. His door opens up, and his older brother stands there. He's like, I can't believe we're related. And he just like shuts the door and leaves. So then we see like a shot of the town the next day. It pulls back to the tower, and Phil's like, I'm next, right? So Teddy's like throwing up, and Lily's like, so now you believe me? And Phil's like, listen, Lily, I've known this guy since first grade, and I know when he's lying, and he is not lying about this lampshade poop. And Teddy's like, we have to tell someone. Phil's like, no one's going to believe us. And Teddy's like, what if we go to our parents? Lily's like, if I tell anyone about this, I'll wind up back at Juniper Hill, which is the psychiatric place that I think was mentioned in the It novel, where that one guy was. And she's like, maybe you guys will be in there with me. Phil's like, I can't go to the loony bin. He's like, Teddy, I couldn't make it through GD sleepaway camp. Teddy's like, we don't tell anyone until we figure out what really happened to Maddie. Then he throws up a little more. Phil's like, and how do we do that? Lily's like, I think I might know where to start. So they go to the library. They're looking at like microfiche. Phil had to bring his little sister, Susie, because he said they couldn't get a sitter or something like that. And she's talking a lot. She's just kind of annoying, whatever. So then Phil makes up like a task. Because she's like signing her name. Or she's talking about like you check out a book, you have to sign. She's practicing her signature or something like that. So Phil says that they need her help to find a bucket full of muffins. And she like kind of thinks about it. She's like, okay, I'll do it. So she goes to look for it. And he tells the others, she's like, she'll never find it. So then they find the newspaper, they're scrolling through, and they see like there's a picture of Maddie. So she's like, right there. So the article's like, local boy missing, last seen at Capitol Theater. And Lil's like, she's looking at it. It's like, they thought it could be a runaway initially, but when he never turned up anywhere else, they presumed homicide. They thought it could have been Maddie's dad. Could have been Drifter, but they never found anyone. And then it says in the article, like last seen January 4th by the daughter of a theater employee, an unidentified 12-year-old girl. And Lily and Teddy look at each other, and Phil's like, who's that? So they go to another part of town, and they're talking to the girl. And when she hears her, they're asking about Maddie, she tells her, she's like, get the hell out of here. She's like, get out. And Teddy's like, what? It's like, what do we say? And she's like, do you know how many times the police came around about that boy? It's like, trying to fix it on my pops. It's like, did your newspaper article tell you mention anything about that? And Phil's like, well, I only just skimmed it. And she's like, just leave. So they start to leave. They're at their bikes. I think it's Phil's like, see, I told you it was a bad idea, chasing a song you heard in the fudging sewers. And then the girl stops, like she's going up the stairs to her place. And she's like, what did you say? And Lily's like, it was a song. I heard Maddie singing it a couple nights back from the drain pipe in my tub. Like, you heard him too? So the girl, Ronnie, she's like, I don't know if it was Maddie, but I did hear voices in the basement of the Capitol in the pipes, kids laughing, crying, calling my name. And she's like, what song was he singing? Then it cuts to the base. Hanlon's like reading a paper in his bed, and he sets it down. He looks at a picture of him, his wife, and a kid. Turns off the light. The blinds are like kind of like banging because the window's open. So he gets up, he goes over and closes it, turns to go back to his bed, and it's like, there's someone out there. And at first I was like, wait, is that Pennywise? Because, we're like maybe halfway through or whatever, and still we haven't seen it.
So then he goes to his bed, and the window behind the bed, there's someone outside. So then I'm like, okay, here we go. It's probably some racist soldiers. They're probably gonna like try to pull a prank on him, haze him, or do something, right? He's in bed, then he opens his eyes, and there's a dude wearing like some sort of, it's not quite a gas mask. I don't know if it's like a flight mask or just like some sort of weird mask over his head. He pulls Hanlon out of the bed, swings him, or he goes up like swinging at him, but Hanlon like blocks it, but he still gets in some hits, and he like hits him a few times, and he knocks him down to the ground. The second guy comes up next to him, and this guy bends over, and he has like sort of filtered voice. He's like, the new B-52 G-Class, they transfer you up here to fly it. If you want to walk out of here alive, you're going to give us specs, speed, range, flight ceiling, payload arms, everything. Understand? And Hannah's like catching his breath. He's like, I'd understand you better if you took off that mask. The guy's like, the specs, no. And Hannah's like, it's classified. So he steps aside. The first guy hits him like 4 times with, I think it was like a metal pipe or something like that. And the second guy pulls out a gun. This isn't a fudging game. The specs, or I pull a trigger on the count of 3. 1, 2. And Hannah's like, you're going to have to pull that trigger. And there's a knock on the outside. He's like, Leroy, what's going on? They look to the door. Hanlon makes a move, hits the guy, tries grabbing the steel pipe from the other guys, like struggling. The dude outside is his buddy Russo. He enters, he grabs like a pitcher, smashes it over one of the guys' heads, and he jumps on the back of another guy. Hanlon gets hit. The guys are, I think there's like 3 of them now, like 3 masked dudes. They're like fighting, they end up leaving. And then Russo's like, he's like, saved your butt again? And he's like, how's my hair? And Hanlon's like, still greasy. So the kids are riding their bike. It's dark now. They got like headlights on her. Phil wants to know where they're going, and the girl's like, the song Maddie was singing comes from the movie, The Music Man. It's like, we should have another print up in the storage room. Phil's like, why do you want to watch this stupid thing? So he's just like, he's so annoying, whatever. He's like, I hate musicals. And Lily's like, because maybe Maddie was trying to tell us something. So they go inside. Ronnie must have gotten her dad's keys or something. So they sit in the theater. Ronnie goes up to put on the movie, and it's kind of dark in the theater. And Phil's like, Ted's, is that you? And Phil's sister's like, is he crying? And Teddy's like, what? No. It's like, shut up, you guys. And he's like, Lily, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, no, I'm fine. I just think about Maddie and what happened and what I could have done different. And, well, he needed me. And instead, I sent him away, and then he was gone. Teddy's like, what we did was worse. Maybe if we'd been there like we said we would at his birthday, maybe things would be different. And Phil's like, it's nobody's fault, okay? Ted's, it's not your fault. Lily, it isn't your fault either. It's like, we're here now. That's what matters. So just stop, okay? And his sister's like, are you crying? And he's like, what? No, I'm not crying. Nobody's crying. The projector turns on, and you can see all 3, Phil, Lily, and Teddy, all 3 of them were crying because they like wiped their eyes. The movie starts on, so it starts at the scene that they're looking for, because it's going on about trouble with a capital T, and that rhymes with P. So Lily's like, that's the song I heard. And then as the dude singing kind of moves around the city square, there's like a bunch of town people like singing with him. And, they have their hands up or whatever, kind of like, wooing with the music. And then you can see Maddie's actually on the screen. And he's holding the demon baby. He's got like a bundle. The sister and the brother from the car are like standing next to him. And the 3, Phil, Teddy, and Lily, they see him. And they're like, they lean closer in their seats. And Phil's like, how is he in the GD movie? Lily's like, what's happening? How's this possible? And Teddy's like, can he see us? And Phil's like, Maddie, we're over here. Maddie. And Lily's like, follow our voices. And then Maddie's like, wait. He steps like towards the cameras. And the other are like, yes, come on, Maddie. So he's moving towards the screen. And the town folk are like starting to get dim in the background. And Maddie's like, Lily, Teddy. And Teddy's like, yes, it's us. And then Lily's like, Maddie, come on, we're going to get you out. And he's like, no, you won't. He's like, you're the reason I'm in here, because you lied, because you weren't there. And then the sister, Susie, she's like, what's happening? And Maddie puts his head like on the baby's bundle, and he looks up, and he has a smile. He has Pennywise's smile. And he lets go of the baby at the camera, and then the demon flying baby comes through the screen and flies at them. But it's huge now.
So it's like the same size that it was on screen. So it's huge. And it like flies at them, but again, because it only has the one wing, it's like all like weird and like, awkward while it's flying. So they like shrink, down their seats. It flies overhead, gets like closer to like the projector booth, but it turns back. Then the film like starts melting, so I guess it must have hit the lamp, whatever, in the projector. So they're like, "What the fudge is that thing?" They're like, "Where'd it go?" And Phil's like, "I told you weird poop was going on at that air base." It's like they made a giant fudging mutant baby. So they lean forward looking, and then the theaters, it's like all red in there from the melting film or whatever, and then the mutant baby pops up, and they all like shrink back in their seats. So they're like screaming. So it starts like kind of climbing over the back of the seats. So they all get up except for Lily. She's kind of like frozen. So they go like to one side, but then the baby flies over to that side. So they turn, they try going the other side, but then Lily just drops straight to the floor. And she sees someone like get like dragged across the floor, and then they're like flung around in the air. I was like, wait, is that Teddy? And then there's like blood, and it like splatters on Lily's face, and then Teddy's face gets slammed against the projector booth window, and Ronnie's up there, and she's like freaking out too. Lily looks up, and then it's like, wait, did Phil get grabbed too? So upstairs, the booth door closes, and Ronnie's trapped in there. Lily drops to the floor again. She sees Susie, and she's like, "Susie!" She screams out her name. Susie tries like crawling under the seats, and then Ronnie, she grabs a hammer. She smashes the window at the door so she can like get through or whatever. Lily grabs Susie's hand, and then she sees like the mutant baby is like right there, right above above the aisle. So she screams. The baby like kind of lunges forward. Ronnie runs down the stairs with the hammer, and then she sees Lily's bloody hand like kind of like crawling like on the ground. So they go out in the lobby, but Ronnie puts the hammer like the door handles to kind of like lock it, to barricade it, whatever, so it can't open. And then she grabs Lily and she like shakes her, kind of like snap her out of it, because she's just like in a daze. And she's like, "What do you mean they're all gone?" They're like, "What happened?" And Lily like looks down and she's holding Susie's hand. It's just not attached to anything. It's like ripped off. And then Ronnie covers her mouth, like moves back, and then Lily, she lets out a big scream, and that's the end of the episode. So Phil and Teddy are gone, and Susie's gone. So Lily and Ronnie are there, but Lily was in the quote unquote loony bin, so no one's going to believe her. Ronnie is black, and her dad is black, obviously, and was accused. They're trying to accuse him of killing Maddie or having something to do with it. So no one's going to believe anything they say, but that was pretty crazy. So that demon baby was pretty freaky and nasty, and yeah. And so that's the thing. You would think it's like, oh, this is kind of similar to the original, because we got Lily, we got annoying Phil, who was kind of like what was his name? The guy that talked a lot, that they would always say beep beep, and then you got Teddy, who was but nope. Yeah. And one of the things they said at the end, like the behind the scenes stuff, they're like, okay, so you see people die in the first episode, so that lets us know, the audience, that like nobody's safe. If they're killing people in the first episode, anything goes. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. So I like it. So now, as you listen to this, obviously the second episode's already out. I thought about it. It's like, okay, I could probably try to, but no. So we're just going to be a week behind with it. So it gives you a week to catch up, so you don't have to worry about being spoiled right away, and gives me a week to watch and catch up and do that. So that was it. Welcome to Derry. Off to a great start. Then we have Adventure Time, Fionna and Cake, Season 2, Episode 2, The Crocodile Who Bit a Log. Man, this series is kind of nuts. I love the fact that it's Fionna and Cake world, and original OG Ooh, well, it's not OG, but we're on Ooh and seeing, older Finn and, PB and Marceline, and it's just, yeah, it's crazy. I feel like it's so ambitious, and I'm so intrigued. It doesn't seem fair to Fionna and Cake, because it's not just Fionna and Cake, but I'm thankful that we're seeing Finn and the others as well. Okay, so it starts off. You see this kind of like sketchy, and by sketchy is like almost like not a lot of details, like no minimal color. It's kind of bluish. It's like, who's this kid, like whacking a stone with a stick? And the reason I say kid is like I wasn't sure. Is like, is this a boy or a girl? Whatever. It turns out it's Huntress Wizard. Like, so this is like a flashback. The stick breaks, and then the spirit dream warrior. He's kind of like wrapped in like this leaves, like shawl of leaves or something like that. Then he kind of turns around and is like, hey, oh, he's like, again. And he tosses like another stick for Huntress to keep whacking this big boulder. So then, but it's like each time we see, it's like, she's kind of changing the colors because now she's kind of like red and pinkish or whatever, and she's hanging upside down from a tree. Then she's like in more pinks, like gnawing on a pine cone. So I guess she was able to eat pine cones or whatever, and then braiding some stuff. I don't know if it was like wheat or something. I don't know what it was, like plant stuff, and then. Where I don't think the colors even matter, but then just like wearing purples, like shivering while curled up in a ball, like sleeping somewhere is like cold, and then like in turquoise color, whacking the stone again, then hanging from the tree by like 1 foot, eating more pine cones, more braiding of the weeds or whatever stuff, sleeping, but now she's not shivering, and then there's like in a sort of lavender color, and then whacking on a stone again, hanging. Eating pine cones in the rain, braiding in the rain, sleeping, and like kind of light blue, whacking the stone. It's like snowing outside, hanging upside down while it's snowing, eating pine cones while it's snowing, more braiding, more sleeping, more whacking, more hanging, more sitting on the stone and eating, more braiding, lots of braids, like a field of braids, whatever. Like, I don't know what these braids are. And then, sleeping on a tree branch while holding a beehive to her chest. I was like, I don't know what's up with that. More whacking the stone, and then the stone cracks in half. The spirit dream warrior smiles, and then Huntress like reaches inside, and there's like a tusk or something like that. She like holds it up, and spirit dream warrior like kind of sheds off the leaf blanket thing and applauds. He's like, Huntress. So this is when I was like, oh, this is Huntress. And he's like, and I guess maybe I should have known before, but he's like, Huntress, you ran those first rights like a pro. If you still seek power, the tooth must bite. So she kind of like flips it in her hand, and then whoosh, slices off her left hand, and she like kind of grunts to fight the pain. And he's like, dang, you didn't even blink. He's like, onto the heart. So she picks up her hand, and they're like walking. He's like, when you came to me years ago, I promised to lead you down the path you needed. And she's just like, He's like, oh, wait a minute, we're this way. So they like turn around and go this other direction. And she's like, whoa. So there's like a bramble and flowers, and then the lady with like this shepherd's crook and a mask. She's like wearing green. She comes out from behind, and she's like, get back, you nasty. And she's like, green wizards only. And she's like, oh, spirit dream warrior. And then she looks at Huntress, who's kind of like bluish now. And she's like, our order doesn't need any more strays. And he's like, relax, witch wizard. I wouldn't bring you a scrub. She's paid her dues. Go on. So Huntress holds up her hand and walks towards the bush. And witch wizard's like, fine. So she sets her hand down at the base, and then vines or like roots pop up out of the ground and kind of wrap around her hand, like cover it completely. And then whoosh, kind of green flames pop up like over the fingers, whatever. Huntress' eyes like are green now. And she looks at her severed wrist, and then like a new hand grows, and she smiles. So green energy pulses from it. She holds her hand like she does an upside down, like upside down glasses over her eyes. Her skin and hair now turn green, and she actually has a mask formed on her face. And then 4 wizards pop out of the bushes and chant, "One with the heart, keep its mysteries on lock. Green wizards only." And witch wizard's like, well, looks like you're one of us now. And Huntress turns, and she's like, no, I'm on my own. So then we get the intro, Fionna and Cake intro, but we see it's different because Huntress is like featured more. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. In the other world, it's night. Fionna puts on a mask. She's wearing like a black knit cap, and she has like wire cutters, like big, almost like bolt cutter wire cutters. She's with Cake, Marshall, and Gary, and they're like wearing like sunglasses instead of a mask, whatever. So they're at the fence around the big lot, where they were saying before. There's like this big security keypad, and there's a sign that says Queenie Enterprise, keep out. So she cuts the barbed wire at the top of the fence, and she tells them, she's like, get ready. Cake's like, should we be doing it this way? She's like, maybe we can look up squatters' rights or something. And Fiona's like already halfway over the fence, and then Cake's like stretches over. Marshall climbs up and just like hops over. Gary stands by the fence. I guess he's gonna be on lookout. So they go over to the trailer, and they like use a couple things like file or something like that. They pry open the door, and Gary whispers, he's like, "Don't forget my mixer and spatula." And then he like thinks for it. He's like, "Oh, and my sprinkles." So Cake extends an arm, like hands him like a jar of sprinkles that she picked up off a table. Marshall hands Fiona like the mixer like bowl thing, and he's like, "This is like Gary's child." And she's like, "Oh, nice." So they're like stacking stuff by the door, and they accidentally push it out of the trailer, so it lands with like a crash. Then a light goes on in Marshall's van. He thinks it's Queenie, she's in there. Fiona raises like a rolling pin, and she's like, "It's like we can take her." But it's one of Queenie's goons, like the dude that looks like he has like a fake nose and mustache, like glasses on, and he's like, "Put that crockery back." And Fiona raises a rolling pin. She's like, "Come get rolled." I just love Fiona and her comments that don't really make sense or whatever she says. So, and he raises a finger, and Cake steps forward. And she's like, hey, let's just be civil. And he's like, "I'm not taking orders from no cat." And then Cake like squints and growls because she's insulted by that. So she makes a huge fist, and she like swings at the dude. He just puts up his hand and like stops her fist. And she's like surprised, and so is like Fiona and Marshall. And then his hand whoosh, lights up in flame, and Cake screams in pain, pulls her hand back. And then the dude, whole body bursts into flames except for like his glasses and nose. And there's like something inside him. He looks like, is that a brain in the esophagus? Or like, what is that? Then the glasses fall off, and you can see like a flame mouth, and and it looks like he has grape eyes or something like that. There's a few more other things that connected. And he's like, "Shoot, my glasses." Then his eyes and his smile gets bigger. And he's like, "Hey." Fiona's like, Cairo siphon. She's like, "Why are you helping Queenie?" And Cake's like, like blowing on a burned hand. And Cake's like, "Yeah, we technically freed you." And he's like, "Sorry, I got laid off from the tea shop." It's like, "I need the money." And Marshall's like, "Yeah, I get it, man. Jobs are a farce." So Cairo siphon like whips. He starts like with the like flame hand. He's like whoosh, whoosh, like kind of making a whip. He's like, "Now scram." So they run like like screaming so I don't get hit by the flame whip. They hop the fence, and he like yells like, "And stay out." And then he's like, "Oh." He's like, "What's my life?" Cuts back to Ooh. Huntress Wizard walks like towards the bush, the bramble thing. The big bear jumps out in front of her. 3 arms, huge claws. And so it has a sort of like weird mask thing that is the same mask that Witch Wizard had in flashback. So obviously this is Witch Wizard, right? Huntress reaches for an arrow and then stops. And she's like, "Witch Wizard, still on guard duty?" Then she changes like human form. And she's like, "Huntress Wizard." And Huntress like, "What's up? Is that a new top?" And she's like, "No." "Yeah, no, it is. It is actually. Why have you come to this hallowed place?" And she's like, I was just in a local area communing with branches." And she starts like moving around the bush. And she's like, "How you been doing?" And Witch Wizard noticed that Huntress had this metal like siphon, like a siphon spigot thing, like what you use for maple syrup in trees. And she noticed in her hand, she like hisses. So she pulls out a dagger and she gets in front of her. And she's like, "Whoa, bro." She's like, "Why the fig?" And Huntress like, "Look, I'm only going to take a little." Witch Wizard's like, she's like, "Heresy." And Hunter's like, "He needs it, my friend." And there's like a pause there. And Witch Wizard like looks back at the bush and recalls Finn lying in the bush laughing. And she's like, "The blood loaf," she's calling him blood loaf, "the blood loaf that choked me out. You told him our secret, traitor." And then like turns into a giant bear and like slashes at Huntress. She's like, "Traitor." And Huntress like, "I told Finn about this place specifically so he would stay away." And Witch Wizard's like, "He deserves to die." There's a shot of Finn like lying unconscious, and then there's like a stare down between Huntress and Witch Wizard in bear form. Then Huntress makes an arrow appear and like tosses it, Witch Wizard catches it in her mouth, but it explodes. So Huntress runs and she burrows into the ground. Like you see her like going all over, more struggling, finding because like Witch Wizard like blasts energy through the hole. Huntress goes like flying out in the air, but then she turns into a hawk. Witch Wizard turns into like a giant frog and like grabs Witch Wizard with her tongue and like kind of pulls her. So they're both like kind of in the air. Huntress slashes at Witch Wizard because now she's a bear. So she like slashes at her nose with the spigot thing. So they're falling. Huntress runs for the bush and the witch turns into a giant crocodile. She like chomps on Huntress, but Huntress turns into like a tree. So the crocodile teeth like kind of shatter and she turns human and she's like, oh, my teeth. Huntress like shoots an arrow that turns into like a net, like ties her up against a tree, and she's like, I know what I'm doing, witch. And she's like, no, stay away from the heart. It's forbidden. Something catastrophic could happen. Huntress is like what? And Witch was like, something dirty. Huntress closes her eyes and hails and whispers, for Finn. She taps the spigot thing into the branch, and Witch was like, no. Some like green neon liquid kind of like drips, and she catches in this container and gets a few drops, and then she corks it. She sighs in relief, but then more comes out, gushing out. She's like, and she pulls like the spigot. She like struggles, pulls it out. Then the branch like cracks in half, and more oozes out, and she's like, oh no. The earth starts trembling and cracks, which was like, I told you. So the bush is now, the whole thing, it lifts up. The bush is like on top of this like giant sort of like deer with like antlers. There's a green ooze like all over its face. Lets out this big bellow that like shakes the place, and it rears like back on its back feet. One foot is like rooted in the ground still, and the other is like has like a leg, whatever, that's chained to like a berry, like it's kind of like a ball and chain or something like that. And on the legs, there's like these little like arms and hands like sticking out. And I had no idea what's going on. Which Hunter's like, I didn't know. There's more bellowing, and then the other wizards around like hear the bellow. An antler like kind of snaps and just like falls off, and Hunter's mask disappears off her face. And she's like, what's happening? And then the net holding witch wizard disappears, and then she's free. She like tumbles forward, and she's like, why didn't you listen? And she starts to change into a bear, but then she can't. She just like falls over. And then her mask disappears too, her like big weird mask. The other wizards appear. Blade wizard's like, the hell? Another asks like, which wizard? What goes on here? And then the giant deer mouth's kind of like the snout and everything kind of gets like sucked in. And they're like, the source. Witch wizard like gasps and points, she did this. And Hunter's like, I didn't mean to. And one of the other wizards like, seize her. So they like raise their staffs or whatever they have. They start to glow, but then they go out. And then their masks disappear too. And they're like, huh? Witch wizard's like, you've doomed us all. So basically like their magic's being affected by this. The others like scream, and one's like, kill her. Another pulls out like a regular blade. He's like, we'll have to go analog. So he throws a blade. She dodges and it sticks in a tree, but there's like a fuse at the end, at the hilt, and it explodes. Two others reach in their cloaks and they throw some blades. Another one must be what knife was? I forget what I said. He's like throwing like blade after blade, and Huntress is like dodging them. But then she slips on a puddle of magic ooze, and she like flies up into the deer's head vortex. She got hit in the shoulder by a blade, and there's a fuse at the end. So she calls out the witch wizards, who seems like she's getting further away because she's going further into this void, whatever. She's like tries like sort of like swimming back, and she's like, Finn, and she's like struggling, but there's no luck. And then she looks at the blade, boom, and her body like blows up, and her head's like kind of floating away. Her like severed head, her severed hand like releases a jar of magic drops that she collected. With Fionna, Cake, Gary, and Marshall, they're sitting at a bar. Cheers is on TV. That episode, I guess Sam lost a bar. He's like, well, I guess that's it, whatever. Cake is like angry. Fionna, apparently Fionna worked at this place and broke a bunch of glasses and stuff like that with her. She was trying to, what was she trying to do? Like flipping, showing off or whatever. But Fionna asks for hand still hurts because Cake, burnt her hand. And she's like, no. And she's like, now that I know that we're dealing with firepower, she's like, I can punch him out. And she strains like make her fist bigger, but she kind of can't. And she calls out to Ruby, the bartender, and she's like, "You got any oven mitts or foil that I can wrap myself in?" And Fiona's like, "Cake, he's a fire god. It's like, I don't want you to get hurt again." And she sighs. She's like, "Okay, I still think I can take him though." Fiona puts like her hand on her head, like smiling, and Cake pushes off. She's like, "Don't patronize me." And she changes into like a cat humanoid form. She's like, "I'm a grown woman." And Fiona like chuckles. Gary sighs. He's like, and she's like, "I'm really sorry I suggested the spot. I thought it was abandoned." And he's like, "Well, I mean, technically we did squat there." And Marshall's like, "Yeah, but the whole concept of ownership is jacked." Then his phone vibrates. It's his birth giver, whatever. So he ignores it. So there's got to be something going on with his mom, because this is the second episode in a row where she's tried contacting him. She tried paging him before. She's trying to call him, and he's just ignoring it because he doesn't want anything to do with her because she has so much money. You know, it would solve a lot of problems. But then he's like, "Where am I going to live now?" And Gary's like, "Well, you could always, stay at my place." And Marshall's like, "Oh, really?" Cake's like, "Look at you two angels," or something like that. And Fiona's like, "But what about your bakery dreams?" And he sighs. He's like, "Well, Queenie won this one, Fiona." And then Cliff on TV is like, "Oh, don't let this get you down, Sam. Not yet." Because again, Sam lost his bar. And he's like, "Cheers can come back bigger and crazier than ever." He's like, "You can do it." And Norm's like, "Yeah, you can do it, Sam." And then Fiona's like, "Cliff is right." It's like, "Cheers, we just got to come back bigger and crazier than ever, unstoppable." She grabs Gary's glass. Because when she was showing the bartender like her flourish, whatever, she's like flipping a glass, it broke. She dropped it. She's like, "I'll pay for that." And then, but here now what she does, when she said to come back and be unstoppable, she grabs Gary's glass, smashes it on the bar floor, and like walks out. And the bartender, she just like shakes her head. At the wizard school, the kids are trying to figure out how to help Finn because he's like laying there unconscious. One suggests a giant magical leech to suck out all the poison, and Simon's like, "What?" He's like, No. He's like, "That doesn't exist." He's like, they're looking in like magic books. "Look for any mentions of the heart of the forest. You check the ancient texts and new stuff, the joke books." On his phone, he's talking to Princess Bubblegum. He's like, "Yes, he seems to be under a powerful enchantment." And she's like, "What does Huntress Wizard say?" And Simon's like, "She didn't. I don't know when Huntress is coming back." And then Peppermint, who is it? It's not Peppermint Butler, Peppermint Kid. I forget. And he's like, "No mention of a heart, but check it. Distendo." And then Finn's eyes kind of get taller. And Simon's like, "Pep." And then he like does something, and then like the eyes go down, and the hat ears return. And Simon's like, "Give him some space, students." PB is like, "It's going to be all right." And Simon's like, "I'm at my wit's end." She's like, "Don't worry, Simon. I've sent help." So then you hear Banana Guard 1 doing like the ambulance, mimicking siren. Ambulance crashes into the room. And like one banana guard like gets thrown out of the ambulance. The one driving like falls out. He's like, "Send another ambulance, please." Outside the fence, the fire dude, he puts up a like "For Sale Queenie Enterprises" sign. The ground trembles and he turns. Fiona's driving in a big tank. It's a peppermint tank. And she's like, "Kiro, I'm here to take back what's ours." She pops up like out of the top of the gun turret with baby world Finn or whatever on her head. Pep Tank's like, "You're a toast, sucker." And the fire dude laughs. He's like, "Yeah, okay." And he just like floats over the fence and goes into Marshall's van. Fiona growls. And Cake's like, "For a deity, he kind of sucks." And Fiona's like, "Pep Tank, take aim." And Marshall's like, no. Because Marshall and Gary are inside. He's like, "Don't blow up my van." And Pep Tank's like, "You guys got to make up your mind." It's like, "You're wasting a perfectly good tank." And Gary's like, "Hey, look at the sign." And Pep Tank's like, "You want me to blow up that sign?" Fiona's like, "Yes or no." It's like, "I have a better idea. Let's buy this place." And Gary's like, "Well, yeah." And Marshall's like, "All of us together? That would be cool." And then she's like, "Math." And she's like, "I'll save you, sweet spot. Tank, back it up." And he's like, "I thought you brought me here to level this place." And she's like, "Yeah, that was a bad plan, I guess." And Cake's like, "Mm-hmm." And Pep Tank's like, "Well, you still got to hold up your end of the deal." And she's like, Yeah. Tank backs up. Beep, beep, beep. Huntress is lying in the grass. It's like normal colored clothes, whatever. A dragonfly lands on her face. And then you hear Finn's voice like, "Huntress, I'm thinking about dying soon." And she's like, "Bummer." So she's like lying on his arm, like next to him on his arm. And she's like, you're going to forget all about me. He's like, never, never. Then he closed her eyes. Then it's back to her floating head in the magical void. And she's like, oh, fig. And she looks at like the floating body parts. And then they all start like floating in the opposite direction. And she's like, where the crud? So some like floating, something like rocks or something reach out with like roots and like touch like a severed hand. And it glows green and it turns into like a little pod. I don't know if it's like a seed or something. Other parts are grabbed and the same thing's happening. They start reaching for her head and she like gasps. All the pods are like sent. They kind of send out like a beam of energy. They make like a magical form of her body, and then the pods like float in like different directions. So there's like a green like flash of lightning or energy, whatever. The pods are going all over the place. She tries like grabbing onto a branch, and like one pod lands in ooh. There's like a baby cinnamon bun or something, picks it up and gobbles it. So they're going out all over the place. We see Fiona's like carrying baby Finn on the phone. She's like, yep, I'm on baby world Finn duty tonight. And she's like, nah, Pep Tank's got a thing. And we see Pep Tank moving his turret up and down at a rave. So silly. And she's like, listen, you're super old. She's talking to Simon on her phone. She's like, you've probably bought a bunch of property, right? And Simon's like, well, you know, the market was always so crazy. And she's like, was I supposed to be saving money this whole time? She's like, what the heck is an APR? So she's finally reached her apartment, and there's still like a tarp covering the big hole in there. She grunts. She's like, how was I supposed to know any of this? Hunter's still hanging onto like this like big stalk or whatever in the magical void place. She notices like a glowing thorn, and there's another one lights up. She hears like a phone ringing and like traffic noise. It's getting louder, and she's like covering her ears. This wave of energy comes up the stalk, so she like kind of leaps, and you know she comes like face to face with thorns, and she says like hello into the glowing thorn, and there's like loud feedback, and she gets like tossed, and then like the closed captions calls it the voice. It almost sounds like Prismo. I could be wrong, but it's like, you all right up there? And she's like, huh? And he's like, oh, a visitor. And she's like, who's there? And then some like red globs, little ball, like start like falling down, like raining down. And when she gets hit, her body shapes like gets all messed up because she's just like energy, whatever stuff. She's like, this place is crazy. And she hears like more cars honking, and she screams. She's like, I have to get back to ooh. And the voice is like, you wish to leave this place, little homie? And she's like, yes. He's like, you just got to choose which direction you want to grow. And she's like, choose. And the like place kind of changes perspectives, and she thinks back to her training. She like, closes her eyes. We can see like different worlds, I think, different things. And we hear Simon say, I'm in an ambulance with Finn. And she opens her eyes, and she's like, there. She goes into this like glowing thorn. There's a little energy body forms like around one of the pods, but she can't move the pod because she's not, I guess her energy form's not strong enough. So she's kind of like being anchored down there. And then she hears Fiona. It's like, Simon, seriously, what's going on? And he's like, I'm in the ambulance with Finn. And Huntress is on Fiona's jacket where she tossed it on the dresser. And she's like, oh no. And Simon is trying to push back like a banana guard who wants to use a defibrillator on Finn. Fiona's like, is it bad? Simon's like, Fiona, it's going to be fine. Finn's going to be fine. He's got a lot of people pulling for him. And she's like, but what if people pulling for him doesn't matter? What if they give up on him? And he's like, we won't, I promise. And then you hear clear, and he's like, ah, and the phone call ends. So Simon must have got hit by the defibrillator. Then baby Finn tries like kind of diving off the washer, so she manages to catch him. She's like, you got to pay attention, baby. It's like, that's no way to live. And he's like, blows a raspberry at her. And she's like, look, no one taught you anything, and that's not your fault. You're trying your best, but if you don't pull it together, everyone's going to leave you. Now, eat your waffle dog. And he like turns his head, and she's like, it's good, I swear. So Huntress pod or whatever still can't move the pod. Like the energy isn't strong enough. But she manages to like extend an arm sort of and like fall forward, like lean forward. She lands in a potted like plant and like digs down into the soil. And then you see that ambulance is about to enter like Candy Kingdom. And that's where the episode ends. Like just another weird kind of abrupt ending. So that's it. I don't know. But I dig it. I don't know about these weird endings. It's just, it's weird how they just stop. But That's it. So I'm enjoying this. I'm digging it. Yeah, and it just blows me away that we have more Adventure Time and Fiona Cake. I know it's called Adventure Time Fiona Cake, but I feel like the Finn stuff is Adventure Time and Fiona Cake is Fiona Cake. So I love that we get both. It's amazing. Okay, and now the movie feature is Frankenstein. So Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. This is so bizarre. The fact that this is just like a Netflix movie, and what's bizarre about it, because it's just it's Guillermo del Toro, and I feel like he's such I don't know if it sounds cliche, but it's like he's such a visionary. Just the worlds he builds, like the thing about like Pan's Labyrinth, or just like it's stuff that's just so visual and just so. It just I can't really describe it. Now the thing with this movie is, for me, the main thing is, oh no, this is an old timey movie. So I really fought the urge with that, because I have deep respect for Guillermo del Toro, and it's got Oscar Isaac, it's got Mia Goth, and I also want to say, before I forget, Jacob Elordi. I don't know if I'm overly familiar. He was in Euphoria, which I didn't watch. He was in the Kissing Booth, but he was really good. He plays the monster. So if you think about this, this is basically Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and I've never read the book or anything like that, but I guess some minor changes have been made and everything, but it's basically the story of Frankenstein. And for me, I'm just like, that's weird. It's like, you're gonna do. It's like, okay, whatever. What's Guillermo gonna do with this? And Oscar Isaac is he's a great actor, so he plays Victor Frankenstein. And it's very interesting, because you see like him as a kid, and him with his mom and his dad, and just growing up, and then like the studies that his dad, because his dad was kind of vicious. His dad was like super rich, and it's all about just like appearances and this and that and everything, and wanting his kid to is just like making him study, and because he wanted him to be a doctor and everything. Because it starts off like with you see like the ship in the ice, like in the or they're headed towards the North Pole. Basically, they discover they find Victor, and he's like injured, like majorly injured, kind of, and like the monster is like chasing him, and then he gets brought back to the ship and stuff like that, and they're like fighting the monster and like all this stuff, everything. Then eventually it shifts to Victor telling his story, so we get that, and so we this is where we get his when he was a kid and everything, and it's kind of interesting to see it. And even though I'm not a fan of like the old timey stuff, I'm always like impressed when they can just like create these worlds, and like even when they're in the Arctic and all this stuff, you see like the ship and the snow, and I mean, part of me is like, how much of this is CG these days, and how much is practical? Because obviously they're not really at the North Pole, but it's so impressive with what they can do, and just movie magic, whatever, and just the clothing and just everything that they do, and like different accents, and so we just have this whole thing set up, and then the dress and the wardrobe or costumes, whatever you want to call it. So they just do this amazing job just setting everything up, and then like when Victor's doing his experiments and setting out all machine, and the machinery is like massive, and just seeing all the parts, and it's just you can get just lost or just distracted almost, just like taking everything in, like all the details of just environments, or whether they're sets or whatever you want to call it. But it's so cool to see all that, and that's what makes me able to appreciate this, because if it wasn't for all that stuff, I'd be like, oh, this is old timey, that's not my cup of tea. But it's incredible, like what they can do. Now the movie kind of felt a little long. It's an hour. Or no, it's 2 hours. It's 150 minutes. So it's like 2 hours and two and a half hours. And the funny thing was, I knew that, but for some reason, I had it in my head that it was like 2 hours, even though I knew it was 2.5 hours. Because
Yeah, and somehow I just mixed that up. And as I'm watching this, I was like, parts of it, I was like, wow, this it feels like they're telling like so much of the story. I was like, how are they doing all this in 2 hours? Because then it's like it's still going on, and there's still more to tell. And but yeah, and I feel like I'm just repeating myself. So it's very impressive. We'll just say that the monster, the quote unquote monster, it's an interesting design, and it's good that they moved away from green. Where did the green come from? I've never read the book, so I don't know if he was ever described as being green. But yeah, so they didn't really go with a green. It was more like kind of like a bluish, which I guess that makes a little more sense, like bluish grayish and stuff like that. But there's just even with how, yeah, there's just some, I don't want to say anything, but there's some cool things about that. But so just going back to the beginning, the fact that this is a Netflix thing, and it's crazy that you're putting this, because it feels so ambitious and so big with everything that they're doing. And not to knock Netflix, because they do some good stuff, but I'm so glad that this is on the big screen, because I feel like it should be seen in the big screen. And I'm not like a big snob, because there's someone recently, I'm trying to remember who it was. Someone's like, oh, I'll only do movies if they're going to have a theatrical, whatever release. That they don't want to do it if it's just going to be on streaming, which I think I get it as well. But there's some quality stuff that is streaming only, and some movies there's no room for it, and you run the risk if you release it in the theaters and it doesn't if it's not a box office smash, that doesn't look good for you. Like the Julia Roberts, Andrew I don't know how that's going to do. That I forget. I can't even think of the name of it. But that's gonna be like a blemish against it. Like if that doesn't do well, then people will be like, oh, people don't like movies, or So I don't know. But I love the fact that it's put out, and I don't know if this is something that they would do more often, because you run that risk. Because obviously, if you're putting all this money, if Netflix is paying to fund this movie, they want it on their platform because they want people like, oh, I better get Netflix now so I can watch this movie. I love Guillermo del Toro, so I need to watch this. But then if it's like, well, oh, it's playing in the theater, I don't need to I don't need to renew my Netflix thing. I can just go to the theater and watch it. I guess on one hand is they'll probably make more money if someone buys a ticket versus pays for a month subscription. Depending on how much of the box office do they get, because they're not getting 100% of it, but they're getting almost all of it. And then I guess there's a question is, I don't even know what the distribution, like, you have to pay to get theaters to do it. I don't know how that works. It's not like the old days where you had to ship film canisters. Those things were friggin' heavy. And now if it's like downloading a key or something, I don't know. So I think it'd be cool if like big movies, if it's like, okay, if this is going to be Netflix only, a Prime movie, Prime only, whatever, is put it in the theaters. If you can even just do it for a week, you're bound to hopefully make some money versus just what you would get from the streaming. And that way, the actors will be happy because they get their theatrical release, even if it's a week or two. I feel like that's better than nothing, but I don't know if there's any downsides to it, and the cost of distribution, I don't know. So it's cool. Like I said at the beginning, I think it's still playing. Maybe you can still find it in theaters before it comes out. Because it's going to be. So when's it coming out? It's going to be, this Friday. It's going to be on Netflix. But there's been times where I've seen stuff that are like streaming, like you can watch it at home now. It's still in the theater. And so you have a choice, because some people, they appreciate the big screen and just the sound system and everything like that. You should definitely check that out. Now let's, I don't really have a whole lot more to say about it, but as of now, and this is probably pretty steady since it's been out for a couple weeks, I think. Rotten Tomato critic scores at 85%, so that's good. Audience 95%, so that's pretty darn impressive. That people like that.
Critics' consensus: Finding the Humanity, one of cinema's most iconic monsters, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is a lavish epic that gets its most invigorating volts from Jacob Elordi's standout performance. Audience says, with his legendary visual touch, Guillermo del Toro resurrects Frankenstein as a modern Prometheus that's gloriously gothic and heartbreaking. So yeah, you should definitely see that. I see if there's any information about how much money has this made. I'd have to look that up. Yeah, I don't. I'm just on the Wikipedia page, and I don't want to like pause and go to Box Office Mojo and everything. But I hope it's doing well. See, the budget was 120 million. That's impressive. I mean, but it's 120 million that they're paying, that Netflix is paying, and how much is it made? I don't know if this is right. It says 129,000. That's all it's made. I mean, maybe it's really limited. I don't know how many theaters it's playing, and so that's the thing. I'm glad my theater had it. So I don't think it's going to be like at every single theater. So you might not be able to see it if you want, but I think you should, or just wait till it comes out on Netflix. But it's definitely worth watching. And I think that's all I have to say about it. It's just. For me, as much as I struggle with the old-timey stuff, I can really appreciate what this is. It's super impressive, and you should watch it, unless you just don't like old-timey stuff like me or Frankenstein or whatever. But it's a cool movie, and yeah, I'm just very fascinated with just the whole, everything. It's just how it was made. It's cool. So that was it. And you're cool because you made it to the end of this episode. So thank you for being here. So big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the Secret Podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I've done a bunch of Off My Mind episodes. I'm probably going to do another what if. I was almost thinking at the beginning, it's like, oh, maybe I should do another Off My Mind, but I haven't quite thought of one. So we'll see. And I feel like I can't do Off My Minds every week. We'll see about that. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck. You can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 8. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. That's ridiculous. No one's going to get me 8 cups of coffee. What is going to happen next week? That's a great question. Next week's movie is Predator Badlands. Yeah, that's going to be tricky for me because I have a meeting after school and I need to like zip out of. I have a heart. It's like I need to leave right at this time. I need to get to the movie, see this. I'm really intrigued with this because I'm not the biggest Predator fan, just because I feel like the Predator movies are like the same thing. They go somewhere, they hunt, they get defeated, and that was the thing with like that Predator movie, the animated movie with the different stories, and I never finished it because I was like, okay, I know what's going to happen. They're going to lose. People are going to die, but the Predator's going to lose. And it's like these Predators suck because they keep getting defeated by the local inhabitants. And how many times are they going to Earth? I feel like they're on Earth way too many times. But with this, I feel like there's a different angle to it because I know very little about this. I haven't read anything about this really. I saw the trailer. I was like, oh wait, what's going on here? So I'm curious to see how this is going to be, and I hope I enjoy it. Yeah. So we'll have to see. And then so I'm really I'm intrigued with that. Fingers crossed that I'm going to enjoy it. And then. What else is there? I don't think anything else is starting up, but we have more Adventure Time, Fionna and Cake, and then more Welcome to Derry comics and that. So this has been, I don't know what's going on. Last week was crazy, even though it shouldn't have been that crazy, but it was. I hope you are doing well. I hope things aren't super crazy for you. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you're finding time to do fun stuff. And I hope you remember, be good to each other.